Welcome back to the Pixel Den. I'm Dan, your host, along with my co-host, Seabass. How you doing, man?
Doing pretty good. What's going on, guys? I hope everyone is staying cool and watching a lot of good stuff out there. So let's get to it, man.
Okay, so there's a bunch of stuff we're going to chat about.
Yeah.
But I want to put, so real quick, I know we talked about this before about like watching movies that people have, that everyone has seen, but then watching it with someone who's never seen it before.
Mm-hmm.
So Shawshank Redemption's on its marathon now because it's TBS, right? So it's just always on.
Classic.
So it was just one of those nights where we, with a kid, just like went to bed. I was just exhausted. I just didn't want to do anything. So I was like, oh, Shawshank's on. Let me just rewatch Shawshank on cable TV. So everything's edited. It takes forever. It's like literally the worst way you can watch it.
Yes.
But I was watching it and I was like, okay, cool. This is Shawshank, right?
Yeah.
And just like listening to, Morgan Freeman's dialogue through that, which kind of made me kind of sad at the same time because it made me miss good dialogue because there's not
You're talking about like narration?
just straight
or
up.
just straight script writing?
The whole thing, just straight up script writing.
Ain't that the
like
truth?
stupid stuff with like, it's like, all right, it's like this, everyone knows, there's a con like me in every prison in America. I'm the guy who can get it for you. It's like stuff like that. It's like, okay. And it was just like watching, like, and of course, listening to Morgan Freeman talk, like, you can do that all day. I don't care who you are. But
The man has the voice of a god.
Oh, absolutely. Despite even, the pretty much Me Too shit that he got hit with.
Yep.
But
No one is safe.
no, absolutely not.
Even Morgan Freeman.
And it is what it is, But what I was getting at was the fact that you just get entranced in the dialogue of that movie.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you really need. You can just
Because, most of it takes place in a prison. There's various flashbacks and whatnot. But
even the flashbacks are super minimal.
Yeah,
And,
exactly. So you really need the acting and the dialogue to really carry it. And Frank Darabont, I believe, was the director for that, right?
I believe so.
And the writer? I can't be too sure. But yeah, I mean, it's a classic case of just a movie that just ages into eternity. I immediately thought of the Gladiator line, like, what we do in life
echoes in eternity. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how you can't get
Frank,
from-
but Darabont is the one who directed it, and he also wrote it. He wrote the screenplay. Stephen
Right.
King wrote the novella,
novella,
which
right.
is okay.
Oh, so you've read the...
Yes, I read it.
So you think the movie adaptation is better than the book?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Just give you a general idea.
I haven't read the book, so...
I mean, it's actually kind of hard to find. It's not really, at least when I was trying to read it years ago, but what I found is Stephen King does this where he's written so much that not everything he writes is gold, but they're all bestsellers.
Mhm.
Like, even, I think he's even said his opus magnus, like his greatest writing is the Dark Tower series.
Mm-hmm.
It's his most ambitious, and it's like finally like out of like kind of set up, quote unquote, like the Stephen King universe, because a lot of those books are interconnected. Go on YouTube, guys, and I guarantee you will find hundreds, if not thousands, of videos of people like connecting the dots,
dissecting it and everything.
and even I can like, I'll read some of the books like on offshoots. I'm like, oh, there's that character. He was referenced in such and such book. Pennywise is all over those books.
Basically like Easter eggs within the books. Yeah.
And with The Shawshank Redemption, the title of the book, the novella, is Rita Hayworth and The Shawshank Redemption. Yeah, I believe that's the full title of it.
Rita Hayworth as in the Rita Hayworth?
Yeah. Because that's the first poster he gets.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
so that's what the... Okay. Yeah.
But I remember not being... granted, when I was trying to find this book, I was in like high school. Amazon then was not what Amazon is now.
No, not at all.
So I'm pretty sure now in like 5 seconds I could probably find that book. But back then it was like kind of hard to find a copy of it. But I remember reading it, and just to give you a general idea, like Red is like an Irish guy. It's not a black, it's not a black Morgan Freeman. Yeah. But yeah, so what I was kind of alluding to is this is just, even now I've watched that movie probably 1,000 times.
Classic.
But even still, the dialogue
holds up.
Some of those lines are just, they carry, like I said, there's a guy like
Get busy living.
There's tons of those like type of quotes. So it was just kind of just like a return to, just like, oh yeah, I wish they would still make movies like this. And they can't, because it costs so much to make these movies. And the return on investment has to be guaranteed. And you can't do that with a movie, ironically, that took a hit.
Yeah.
Like nobody, like they didn't make money initially on The Shawshank.
No, it was probably not successful at all, and it was probably one of those movies that was like cult classic that grew in popularity as the years went on, and then obviously with the TV airings.
Well, that was the thing. I think it's like Ted Turner. He saw it. It didn't do well in the theaters. Like, it wasn't a bomb. It didn't get like destroyed by reviewers or anything. Just no one saw it.
Yeah.
I think was the year, I think it came out in 94 and '94 had some heavy hitters.
94 was, I mean, you had Pulp Fiction in that same year. Yeah, that was a tough year to compete in terms of.
Yeah, you had Pulp Fiction. I think Clear and Present Danger. Leon the Professional comes out. Speed comes out. Like, that movie doesn't fit. You know,
So
Natural Born Killers,
what
The
month
Mask, Interview with the
in-
Vampire, Forrest Gump, and Clerks. Like, come on, talk about a weighted year.
Did it come out like during the holidays in 94, or was it
Well, let's see what our lovely Wikipedia says. Our lovely Wikipedia says September.
September? So right around fall. Fall is kind of a dead month
Yeah.
for movies.
It's a shame because, you know, Castle Rock was doing some great movies too. I mean, they did like, you know, In the Line of Fire, which
It's no longer a studio, right? Or
I
it
think
got ate up by someone,
it's a
which is the way it is now. Because
I think it got gobbled up by Warner Brothers. So there you go. Like, they
what is
don't-
it now? Warner Brothers Discovery. or
Yeah,
something like that. It's just like these massive. There's only like 3 big kahunas now. I would say 3 or 4 big kahunas.
I mean, I think even
studios.
Paramount might be for sale soon. I think, you know, it's just
Yeah.
like these these mammoth studios are now getting gobbled up by the bigger guys. And it's, you know, they say, you know, Disney's going to wind up owning everything. But, I mean, if you're going to get gobbled up, might as well be Disney.
Yeah,
you
because
know.
they have the money and resources.
The money, the resources, they're never going to kill your projects. They're going to throw it, you know, the worst case scenario, you get thrown on Disney Plus, and at least your stuff gets out there.
Yeah. Whether it's good or not remains to be seen.
Well,
but,
yeah, and that's kind of the thing. It's like,
yeah,
that's was what happened with, I think it's like Batgirl.
Yeah, they
$90 million project. They just shelved.
They totally shoved.
Michael Keaton is Batman in that, and they just shelved it. Now, I kind of understand why they did that. I don't agree that they did it, but I think I understand why. The brand of Batman is American Lexicon.
Mm-hmm.
Batman, and don't give me, you know, I'm not getting into the culture war of, oh, Batman versus Superman, none of that crap. Batman is one of the most identifiable IPs America has, right up there with Star Wars, Star Trek, you know, all the, just to kind of put it on the echelons. Now, I can't, you know, haven't seen a movie, you know, but something tells me if it's that bad. Now, granted, 90 million, not a lot of money for a superhero movie.
No, it was probably,
But what I'm thinking is
especially the actress. She wasn't that big for stardom.
she wasn't, you know, but it's like, that's not the first time like they've given a shot. But granted, this was supposed to go straight to streaming. But my view on this is that I'm thinking that they are still trying to kind of like not repair, but maintain the IP.
Mm-hmm.
Because Batman movies are pretty much are right up there with like James Bond movies. Like, there is a certain formula.
Sure, I could see that
Careful,
correlation.
don't fuck it up.
Yeah.
You know, there was a time where we thought we killed Batman. Like, Batman was done after
Well, the Clooney,
the Clooney Batman.
and Schwarzenegger Batman almost was a nail in the coffin for that franchise.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, talk about every bad decision. And granted, George Clooney goes around jokingly. No, it's not his fault. You know, it's the script, it's the directing, it's like everything. You know, and I understand like how they wanted to get away from, you know, Batman and Batman Returns, like from that
Tim
style,
Burton
the Tim
darkness.
Burton's, because they realized we have to sell action figures, we have to sell toys.
But weren't they still doing that with the Batman?
They
Batman
were,
toys?
and they want to do
Hey
it
man,
more. But
I have a toy Bruce Wayne Manor that like shifts into like different. I remember, man, because I bought every goddamn toy. But yeah, you're right. I think they wanted to lean more into.
Well, I think because also if you rewatch now, okay, hot take, kind of controversial. Not a fan of Tim Burton.
Okay.
Not
I'm
a
not
fan.
gonna fight you for it.
Yeah, it's no
I
one
like-
does.
I
No one.
like Tim Burton
I know
stuff.
you're not gonna die on that hill.
I'm not gonna be
but
like, go F yourself, man. Tim Burton's the man.
I think, and don't get me wrong, like Batman Returns growing up was one of my favorite movies. But now
I was in
rewatching
love
it,
with what's her name?
Michelle Pfeiffer. Yeah.
Ole mole.
Although try getting that character made today, you shouldn't. First off, and you can't.
Basically a dominatrix.
Yeah, but it's like you're not like doing, you know, that story. But what I mean is, my problem is like if I rewatch the Batman, like, you know, Batman and Batman Returns, and I kind of don't like them anymore. And
Really?
I mean, I have like that fondness that I had when I was a kid. You know, that's still there. But
Is it too outdated, you feel like?
no, I just think it's like the style, the style of like Gotham, and like, not really. Don't get me wrong, like Jack Nicholson as the Joker is amazing.
Yeah.
Michael Keaton as Batman is awesome. Like, the casting's perfect in both movies. There's not one bad cast character. Like, there's no one that was like, oh, really? They went that route.
To this day, Danny DeVito is. Although I did like Colin Farrell's.
Yes, that's what. Yeah, Colin Farrell's.
It was more grounded, less cartoonish than Danny
See, that's the thing
DeVito's.
with the Batman stuff. You can't compare them because they are all very different themes and styles.
Yes.
So it's like the most recent Batman you cannot compare to the Nolan stuff, and you can't really compare the Nolan stuff to the Schumacher stuff or the Tim Burton. Like none of them can be matched up together because they're very different, and they're supposed to be. Like they're not supposed to be continuations. They're supposed to tell this story.
I mean, even Zack Snyder's version of Batman is its own thing.
Actually, I kind of liked.
I mean, hey man, Ben Affleck gets a bad rap. I thought his portrayal of Batman was the most physical.
I think the casting for the Snyder stuff is good. Like I can't think of anything where I was like, that's a little cringe. Like, you know, the casting for Harley Quinn is perfect. I mean, maybe the Will Smith stuff was kind of like
Deadshot when he was Deadshot.
Deadshot wasn't great. I like that character. I wasn't a big fan of Will Smith as that character. And actually, you know, Jared Leto was not a great Joker. You know, I kind of dug that he went with like a kind of like cartel, like, you know, gangster kind of style.
As opposed to the psychotic and jestery.
Yeah, like with the what Heath Ledger was doing with Joker. Where I was going with this is after my little tangent about the Batman is that I can understand why they were like, all right, we're gonna shelve this, and it probably wasn't that bad of a movie. But something tells me they knew this isn't going to do us any good. Like, we're not going to get anything good out of this. We're just going to get bad press. And we have the Batman movie, which was popular, and we're planning to do a sequel on that. And not to mention, we're doing the sequel to Joker, which is going to have Lady Gaga in it. And it's pretty much a fucking musical in Arkham.
Yeah.
Which is like, cool, do weird stuff. And we've talked about this. Give me weird at this point.
Different and weird, yeah.
Like, we have had my entire life of just standard stuff, and that's always there, and I love that I can always go back to it. Give me weird stuff now.
Yeah.
And that, I'm like, yeah, totally. Give me a lot of Lady Gaga in a musical in Arkham with the Joker. Sure. With Joaquin Phoenix? Why not? Let's go. Like, at this point, I'll go see that.
Watch, hell yeah.
You know, but that's where I think it's like, all right, we got this, and those have themes and style. Now, like, going to straight to streaming is the equivalent of going direct to VHS when we were kids.
Which is bizarre to me because you and I, we just talked about this off air, but we watched the most recent Predator movie, Prey, and that went straight to Hulu, which I could have sworn that it was going to be in theaters first.
I thought so too.
And then I saw Hulu grabbed it, and maybe because they didn't think it was going to get as much. I really liked it.
So
I think critics were pretty high on it as well.
Actually, I think it's the most popular at the time of this recording. I think Hulu was saying it was like their most popular product yet for film. Like,
so win for streaming and sucks for the theaters.
You have so the director, he did Cloverfield Lane, which is 10 Cloverfield Lane, which I love that movie.
Yeah.
And I think we talked about this on the Lost episode, but my affinity for that trailer to me made me automatically like the movie.
Yeah.
Because the initial teaser trailer that they launch, I got it early in the morning, so like I didn't get any of the news or any of the media about it yet.
Yeah.
And it's like, Prey. I'm like, all right, let me watch this trailer, right? I got 10 minutes before this work meeting. Let me just watch this video real quick. And it's like amazing camera angle of the pretty much just, I hate describing trailers on audio, but screw it. It's kind of a bird's eye view of the forest, right?
Yeah, which the movie, one of those rare instances where the trailer actually reflected what the movie was going to look like.
Yeah, and it was
the movie was beautifully shot.
That's what I was going to get.
Great
That's where I was going to. Is like the cinematography is amazing. Like the top shot where she spins on the tree limb, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And like you see the trailer, and it just like there's a slow crawl of director of 10 Cloverfield Lane, and I'm like, okay, what's he doing? And then I see like an indigenous woman running through the woods, and I'm like, okay, so we're doing kind of, you know, like a Dances with Wolves, you know, like Return to Nature kind of story. And then like she's running, and then she's staring at the fire. She's like, oh shit, something's chasing her. What's coming out there? Like a bear or something? And then you see the three spokes, and you're like, oh shit, they're doing another Predator, bro. And it was so great. And but they don't really do trailers like that anymore. Most trailers ruin the movie now, and I get why, because we're in the era of TikTok.
I think the initial trailers of some movies are really good. It's just that as it goes on and the marketing continues to get closer to the movie, it tends to spoil stuff, and it tends to show a side of the movie like, oh, I thought this was one thing, and now it looks like it's going to be something different, and maybe I don't want to watch it anymore. But still,
it's like, great, that was the big the big
sequence
moment, and now it's gone. And this, I think, was a great trailer to a really good movie where all right, we got 30 seconds to hook you. How do we hook you on a Predator movie again? It's been done.
Because the last one was really bad.
It was really cringe. And Prey is great. Like the storytelling, the fact that they use actual
Comanche.
The Comanche. They actually really use actors and actresses from them. Not from them, but from that, you know, actually using authentic. You have real want this,
which I know you love with the little like
absolutely
little callbacks to the time period.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Well,
but it brings also an air of like authenticity.
Yes, yeah.
To this, where it actually, of any movie that could probably get away with just casting just like a bunch of Latinos to go do this movie, and like they probably would get no shit for it, would be Prey.
Mm-hmm.
But they're like, no, fuck that, we're gonna do it right.
Yeah.
Which I was like, all right, cool.
Good.
Now, granted, at the end of the day,
because Amber Midthunder, who's the lead actress,
Yep.
she is Native American.
Yes, she is. She's from the Comanche tribe.
Yeah. So, and I've seen her in other stuff too. She's pretty great. Yeah, it was just shocking to me to see that a movie of that caliber
Mind you,
went.
a streaming movie. It's like
Now, let me ask you this: would you have liked to see that movie in a big screen?
I would have
movie
definitely
theater?
gone to the theater.
I was as I was watching the movie, I was like, man, if I saw this on the big screen, I would have paid my $20, $25.
Well, it's one of these things with this movie is now one, I'm completely biased. I love the Predator movies. Like Predator is
Love
great.
it.
Predator 2, I'll watch it. Predators, the Planet one, with Adrian Brody, awesome.
Yeah.
The others, really bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then when they crossed over into Alien, that was kind of like.
I mean, I kind of like so nerded out when AVP came out. I went to the theater.
It was fan service.
Full fan service.
Yeah, so
I read the comics. I've read the novelizations of that stuff.
It blows my mind that there were video games before the concept of the movie got greenlit.
So this
you would have thought.
Well,
that,
here's like the little. Okay, so I have an uncomfortable amount of knowledge on this, and it's kind of embarrassing, but we're going for it. So, Predator 2, right?
Mm-hmm. Danny
Glover.
Glover. Jinx not
Right? This time Predator's in the jungle. It's in the concrete jungle, all that crap. But now at the
I'm pretty sure that was used as a trailer name.
I think it was because I would use that. So at the very end of the movie, all right, if you haven't seen it, or sorry, movie came out in the 80s, deal with it. So here's the spoilers. So Danny Glover gets to the end of the movie. He's under LA in a subway, and what does he find? He finds the Predator ship, and inside the Predator ship, there's like a room full of trophies. And this is where it began. Before the novels, the comics, all of that stuff, there was an alien skull, a xenomorph skull on the wall. And now I could be wrong, but I could have
Someone
swore
in
I
the
heard
YouTube comments
that's
gonna get you.
so it's fine. I want to be corrected if I'm wrong. Like this is not, that's the whole point. I believe they just threw that in there because why the fuck not? Because the studio making Predator also owns the Alien IP.
I
So
believe it's 20th Century Fox.
it's Fox,
right?
yeah. So they threw that in there just because, right? And the fucking audience was like, whoa, wait a minute. This is the same universe? What the fuck, bro? And so that's when all the comics, the games, the novels, like, 'cause there's a whole novel series on this. And then they're like, all right, cool. So what, because think about it, what would be like Predator's ultimate hunt? The queen. You know what I mean?
So,
It's like,
so what you're saying, let me see if I get this right, is like they put that in the Predator 2
They just
movie,
threw it in.
And then from that, they were like, okay, well, now all the comics and novels and all that will go off that one throw-in idea.
well, it was, everyone loved it. So people were like, all right, I'll write a book. I'll write a
Really?
comic. I'll make a game. And that's how that all started.
So funny.
Now that happens a lot. The fan base
True.
on one little insignificant thing happens.
Boba Fett got his own
That's
series.
where I was going with. Is great segue. Boba Fett does not have a speaking role until Empire Strikes Back, and his speaking role is only maybe 2 lines. And
But
then
he's so fucking cool, man.
yeah, he's very cool. He's got the coolest armor.
Yeah.
And that spawns a bunch of spin-offs with him. Now, granted, it was over 30 years from when they show you Boba Fett to when he gets his own TV show. Name anything from 30 years ago that gets a TV show today. Exactly.
I'm sure there is, but I can't think of it out there.
Not many.
Yeah.
That's why I kind of like was laughing with like Predator and stuff like that. Was like Prey should not have been that good for a prequel of a pretty much essentially the last movie almost killed the whole franchise because everyone's like, this is really stupid. Predator, like the Predator hunter suit and like the Alpha Predator and the Beta, it was like, this is kind of shitty. It's like, and there was some cool actors, there was a couple cool lines, but like a lot of times I'm like, this is really bad and like kind of uncomfortably bad.
Yeah, I think if you have a cool enough concept or an idea or universe, if you have a shitty movie or two, you can always like reboot it in a way that is fresh and exciting, much in the same way they reboot franchises. A good example of this would be the Tomb Raider video games, right?
Absolutely. I know. that.
The reboot of it, which came out, oh my God, I want to say 8 years ago.
If that.
6, 8 years ago.
And that was actually not a bad movie.
Yeah, so like the video games that came out initially for PlayStation were great, and then they kind of like they were kind of like losing
They
their
lose their steam, yep.
losing their steam a bit, and then they took a couple year breaks, and then they rebooted it with like a younger, like going back in time.
It was kind of like a pseudo like how does she become the Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
And I remember it's like it's more grounded, and it's like also technology got to a place where, you know, also they fix the character.
Yeah.
They show her actually struggling and not just being this badass. And
Not
it's like,
being
but
this,
it's also showing that no, she can get through this.
Pixelated.
Yeah, all that crap, and it's. I mean, that was the era, the cringe of the '90s with video games.
Wasn't she like voted like #1 hottest female
sure she
character,
was.
video
It's
game
so
character
stupid.
throughout so many years?
It's like, yeah.
How do I know that special? I don't know. All right, let's move on.
And I mean, then you get the Tomb Raider movies, and then the reboot of the
yeah.
Tomb Raider movie, which is actually not too bad.
Yeah, it has Alicia Vikander.
Yes, it does. Which actually
was based more on the video that had video game
of
elements.
the current one, yeah.
Which is good. Why not?
Actually, and then I think the rights to that got sold, I believe, recently.
Yes, I think that.
And they're just going to do it again, and she's out. Like, they're not even going to use her again.
It's
Which
a little
is
bit in
shame,
limbo,
'cause
yeah.
I don't know how the fuck they got her. I mean, she's a brilliant actor, and they get her for a video game movie. And I mean, it didn't bomb. Like, it was, you know, I think, let's see. Yeah, no. So they're estimating about $108 million budget. It made 275. So yeah, all right. So it made some money.
I mean, there wasn't a big crave for it, but
No.
at the same time, you know,
It's an action movie.
It's an action movie. But yeah, no, I'm saying I think you can definitely reboot, especially in today's age of remakes and reboots where studios just simply want to have a built-in audience already with whatever movie they're coming out. I think you gotta have a good writer and good director. Like what worked for Prey was they had a great director.
Yeah, because like the hunting scene of on the tree at the beginning of the movie.
The
with
writing in
wall
Prey
with
is a
the
little.
lion.
I mean, I don't want to spoil the big spoiler.
There's
They say one very famous line from the original Predator movie that
Yeah,
when
there's.
he said
I mean,
it, he was like,
"There's gonna be that
"Oh
stuff."
my God.
I mean, there's gonna be that stuff.
yeah. And there's like, I hunt because you don't think I can. I'm like,
that was a little. I mean, I can't really speak to that, but I think it was a little ham-fisted.
But
I'm
regardless,
fine. I'm fine with that being told in the story.
I mean, it's not a terrible script, but it's not like an amazing script either. But I think the action sequences, cinematography, more than it's a Predator movie. You're going in for the action.
I mean, you get
sequences.
yourself like a more avant-garde director. You know,
Yeah.
you get yourself a decent cast.
You can
know, it's-
definitely breathe life back into a franchise with the right creative team. It's not totally dead, and you will still have an audience. Like, you know, there's definitely people that defend certain movies that are like, oh my God, if a remake came out of it, I would totally watch it because I love the original. It's a classic. And there's others that are obviously like, I'll never watch the remake because the original was a classic and blah, blah, blah. I don't know. You're going to watch it. Okay, you're going to
Well,
be curious.
that's where I was going. It was they wouldn't do remakes if it didn't make any money, and they
Yeah.
make a shit ton
They
of
make
money.
a shit ton of money.
So yeah, I mean, it's like, here's the thing: if you don't like remakes, see, here's my thing: you're not taking away from the original. So when they do, like, this goes with everything in my view. So it's like when they do a remake and it like bombs or something, like Conan the Barbarian, right? The remake wasn't great.
You're talking about the one with Jason Momoa, right?
Yeah, it's not a great remake, but it's like you didn't delete the old one.
Exactly.
And I have my view goes with like novel movies that are based off of novels, where people go, "Oh my God, the book was so much better." Well, yeah, because they had one only has 140 pages to get you, the other one had 500.
Yeah.
But you're not deleting the book. The book is there.
Exactly. If you didn't like the movie adaptation or you didn't like, you know, the new version of it that came out, you still have the old one to go back to. It's not tarnished, or the legacy is like, you know, no, I can never watch another Conan material thing, or I can never watch another.
Yeah, it's gone. You know, so like I said, with remakes, I think they're just always they wouldn't do it if it didn't make any money.
And that's why they keep coming out with, and, you know, I feel like actors would be willing to go back to certain roles too, because, you know, they're known for it. They were iconic and they liked it just because, you know, maybe the movies weren't critically acclaimed, or, you know, they went to those Comic-Cons, they, you know, gave it all for their role. And then if you ask them to come back, they'd be like, yeah, I'd go back to it. I had fun doing that, you know?
I mean, Harrison Ford's infamous for that. You know, people like to think that he's like ruining, you know, the movies he's in, and I don't think so. You know, I think like there's that famous there's a clip on YouTube floating around when he was doing the Blade Runner
2049, yeah.
Yeah, 2049 promos and stuff, and like a fan like was said, you know, why, you know, are you gonna keep going back and ruining my childhood? And he said that in front of all of it, and he literally like smart, he was all right, smart. He's like, yeah, he's like, I'm gonna, yeah, absolutely, why not?
Nerd.
It's like not even that crap. It's more just like, one, don't be a dick, but it's like, yeah, he wants to keep going with these characters. Why not?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, there are certain people that will continue watching a product no matter how, if they come up with bad movies or bad
Oh, yeah.
spin-offs.
Oh, dude,
Yeah.
I don't care how bad Star Wars ever becomes. I'm watching every one of them.
Yeah, and
Every one of them.
and we will keep watching them because everyone has this like it's like a magnet. Star Wars, like you can't help but be attracted to it. You want to see where the new stuff goes, and
Oh, yeah.
you'll give it a shot. Does it necessarily mean it will be good all the time? No, because there's definitely some bad Star Wars and stuff.
Oh, absolutely. I'll be the first one now. Like, yeah, just like full disclosure, I am like, I know more about Star Wars lore than I do about historical figures I've written a thesis on. But with Star Wars, so like, and I think this is not like an original story, but like Star Wars is one of the few things that my family unanimously enjoys.
Yeah, it's besides like the story of Star Wars, there's something of a connection with just like you said, like you watched it with your brothers or
I mean, even like my
that.
mom watched that.
Exactly.
My dad liked it. My sister liked it.
There's a connection
like-
beyond just like watching
Absolutely.
it as a movie.
I
It's like
remember-
an experience that you had.
I mean, there's not many movies you can like as a child remember the first time you watched it. You know, it's like I remember the first time I saw Toy Story, but then I remember the first time I watched any of the Star Wars movies, and it was Empire Strikes Back. So imagine how confused I was.
you saw Empire Strikes Back before
Yeah.
New Hope.
So
Hilarious.
growing up, you know, we didn't have TV, we didn't have cable or antenna or anything like that, but we
Yeah.
had a stack of movies. And my brothers are old enough to were around when Star Wars Episode 4 was in the theaters.
Mm-hmm.
They remember telling me going through a drive-through to go see it. A drive-in, sorry, not a drive-through, a drive-in. And they had all the toys and like the big day. I remember them telling me like they got to stay home from school the day it came on HBO because it, you know, they didn't have VCRs back then. You just when it was on HBO, that was it.
Yeah.
So, and then growing up when it was, like, I remember it was me, my mom, and I think my mom's boyfriend at the time or something. We're in the living room in our little apartment and we're watching Star Wars Empire Strikes Back. And the first time, like, I remember, you know, Luke's in the, fighting the giant Yeti, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
and he's hanging with his legs in the air and it's,
Obi-Wan shows up and you're
not
like,
even, no, this is before the Obi-Wan. And like he uses the Force to grab his lightsaber, he cuts, he kills, you know, bomb, and he runs, right? And I remember my mom yelling, all right, Luke, use the Force. I'm like, what the fuck's the Force? What the hell is she talking about? And I was a kid. I was in elementary school. And I had watched that one and Return of the Jedi religiously.
Yeah.
I think every weekend I would do movie marathons growing up because we didn't have TV.
yeah.
And I didn't have a lot of friends in the neighborhood and all that other stuff. And so I would, and like my best friend moved away. So all I really had was like this stack of movies. And I was allowed to watch whatever I wanted as a kid. I was allowed to watch
Rated R. or-
Rated R. I mean, I remember like watching Stripes, which is still one of my favorite comedies of all time, but it's got full frontal nudity in it. And
How
I
old
was
were you when you watched Stripes?
like maybe first, second grade. Like
Lamau.
I was literally allowed to watch anything. Now, granted, you know, I didn't really like horror movies. It wasn't like I was watching super grotesque movies. Like I wasn't watching Reanimator. Like I wasn't watching anything like that brutal.
Yeah.
But I was allowed to watch R-rated movies. And for the record, that was my friend's tricks when we were in elementary school. My mom would let me watch Stripes, and she forgot this full frontal nudity, so my friends would want to watch it.
Oh, so you were like the kid that had the
I was the
access
kid
to
with the Playboy,
movies.
right?
Yeah,
and it was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
and I remember going, Mom, we're gonna watch Stripes, and she'd be like, Yeah, okay, like completely forgetting. And so my friends would be like, and they were idiots with it, and I was just like quiet about it, and they were like, Oh my god, this is gonna be so cool, bro. This is amazing. All right. But anyway, so I remember like just watching those movies every weekend. I would do a marathon and it would drive my family fucking nuts. All right. So every weekend I would watch Empire Strikes Back and I would watch Return of the Jedi. And then I would watch the Indiana Jones marathons. And then the next day I would watch Back to the Future, the whole trilogy, all three
Yeah.
of them. That was the movies I watched every weekend.
So how long did it take you to finally watch A New Hope?
So I didn't know, like we had the library, but my family's weird. So they never said, hey, you really like these. There's another one. And I always knew there was another one, but I just never had it. And I didn't ever, I was a kid, so I never thought, oh, I can go. So one day the special editions are getting released into the theaters, right? This is Lucas's preamble to the prequel movies is that he did the special editions and he re-released them in the theaters to kind of remind people, hey man, Star Wars is awesome. You all love this because in like 2 years, I'm about to announce fucking the prequels.
Yeah.
All right. So I was like, oh shit, I want to see. I know I didn't say oh shit, but I was like, oh man, I really want to watch the special editions. And my mom's like, oh, you can just go watch the first like episode 4 right now. We can go to the library and get you a copy.
Sag.
Now, granted, we didn't have a lot of money growing up, right? If any.
Yeah.
I go to the library and there's a New Hope, and I'm like, oh. So here I am, like, all my friends, man, I can't wait to go to the movies to see Star Wars. And I'm like, I already seen it, bitch. Right? So, and we go and I watch New Hope, and I'm like, oh, this is awesome, right? So it was funny.
And
it was
makes
years,
more sense.
years
Yeah.
before I saw it, and it made a ton more sense. But I think too, it's like one of these things where it's like it's a sci-fi movie my entire family liked.
Yeah.
Like I remember when the prequels come out. I remember being at my brother's apartment. My brother's much older than me, so he was already married when I was in middle school, and I was an uncle by then. And I'm sitting in his living room. He's in the kitchen, hanging out with like some people or something. I'm just hanging out at his house, and I did not know the prequels were being made. This is before the internet, so like, and I didn't have Hollywood
I
Reporter.
remember, the reveal of the Phantom Menace trailer was big.
It blew up the world, and I remember watching a commercial, and I saw the Lucasfilms title. I'm like, wait, I know that. And then all of a sudden, it shows you Anakin and Obi-Wan and fucking all that. And I remember screaming at the top of my lungs to my brother's name, I'm like, George, you gotta come in here. Star Wars, new Star Wars. And my brother at this point is in his 30s, comes running in. This big dude just comes running in because he's so excited to watch a trailer to a movie that he saw 30 fucking years ago. And and I remember, and then like I remember like he surprised me with day one tickets. He was able to get tickets. This is when you had to go wait online to go get them. And quick little stories. I remember when episode 2 was coming out. Now we're in middle school. My whole crew's going. The whole crew. I'm not going because it's a weekend and I have to go to my dad's on the weekends. All right. Not have to. I'm going to my dad's on the weekends because my parents were divorced. So I'd see my dad. I'd spend my weekends at my dad's house. But he lived a couple towns over. And I remember being so bummed. Like, I'm fucking missing Star Wars. This fucking sucks. I remember being upset on the car ride there. And now I wasn't.
Did you know that it was Attack of the Clones?
Well, it doesn't even matter. Fuck that. Hey, I am a prequel apologist.
Sure.
But I remember, like, back to stories, I remember just kind of being bummed the whole night. And I was not a kid that would throw a fit or go, Dad, what the fuck? Like, I was a kind of quiet kid and kind of just like internalized everything. So I would never like tell him, hey, Dad, can we go see this tonight? Like that was not in the mindset. So I'm in my dad's room on the computer, kind of like pouting because my whole crew is going to see Star Wars. They're all fucking pumped, right? And I'm like, this sucks. Out of nowhere, it's like 8 o'clock at night. I get a phone call from my brother Matt, my other brother, and he's like, what are you doing tonight? I'm like, what the fuck do you think I'm doing tonight? Like, I'm 13. I'm like, not even. I think maybe I'm not even 16 at this point. I think I'm like 14, 15 years old. And I'm like, I'm just at dad's, kind of just on the computer playing StarCraft. My friends are gone. So I'm just like, no, this is over exaggeration. He's like, I got tickets to the midnight release. You want to go to it? I'm like, fuck yeah, I want to go to it. So it was one of the coolest moments as a kid. And one of my fondest of me and my brother was that something tells me he kind of got word that I was not happy. About, like something tells me there was a conversation between one parent to him saying, hey, Dan's a little bummed. Throw him a bone.
Take him out, yeah.
But who knows? And he comes and it's the midnight. Now, this is like ultra cool. You have an older brother. I think you get the vibe where it's like, whoa, I'm hanging out with my older brother at midnight, just me and him.
Yeah.
This is cool. This is just, cool. And and this was the brother I idolized.
Yeah.
He was good with women. He always had cool music. He was just cool.
Yeah.
He was like, this is the brother. And it's amazing as I get older, that flips. But I remember like, this is like, and like, I'm hanging out with him and like we're going to the movie theater and then we go to this rinky-dinky theater and I remember just sitting there. The theater's like empty because we're in like bumfuck. There's like nobody, like where my dad lived, no one lived there, right?
Yeah.
And I remember watching the whole thing and then there's the pit battle and Yoda and I was like, oh my God, it was the greatest fucking thing. So it's like those are the memories that stick with me with Star Wars.
Yeah.
That's why they can make 1,000,000 of them.
And you'll keep going back to it.
Because then I remember when like Revenge of the Sith came out. Now that was a big goddamn year because I think Matrix, Revolutions, Lord of the Rings, and Star Wars all like started. Oh, they all like essentially ended the same year. I could be wrong, but I vaguely remember all three of them. These like 3 big tentpole trilogies ending around the same time. Then I remember going to the midnight with my crew. And then of course that ends, and I'm like, all right, well Star Wars is done. And then I remember now we're adults. I'm married at this point now. So to give you a J, right? I'm married.
I like how you had to think about that for a second.
It's bad. Right? And I remember like, all right, Disney buys LucasArts. They buy the IP, which one of those IPs I never thought was for sale. And I remember now I'm older, got my best friend, his brother. I got my wife going with me. And I remember I was at a meeting at work. So we got the midnight tickets. I'm like, all right, cool, but I had to work. And I remember I'm in a manager's meeting, like the entire company, all the exec, the owner, the vice president, the president, me, all of them are at this meeting. It's a monthly meeting we have to sit in. I remember leaving that fucking meeting early. And they didn't even question it. They were like, where you going? I'm like, bro, it's Star Wars. So I work in IT. So I'm the resident geek. You know what I mean? I'm the
Yeah.
geek employee, right?
Yeah.
So they're like, oh yeah, of course, the IT guy's got to go to see Star Wars. Like, all I needed was Doritos and fucking Mountain Dew, and I was that guy. So it's just funny to see the spectrum of this one movie series where I'm a little kid seeing it in my crappy little
you,
1-bedroom apartment with my mom in the ghetto, and then all of a sudden
Fast
now as an
forward now,
adult,
Yeah.
you know, I'm going with my wife to go see these Star Wars movies,
Yeah.
and
And
still
then when
doing
the
trends.
new movies come out, you can take your kids.
See, that's the cool part is now I get to see someone else, like, hopefully enjoy it, but get to watch them.
Well,
know?
you can always show them the old ones.
I plan on doing release date first. I go by the release date. So when anyone asks me, because I have, like, my brother-in-law has never seen Star Wars, and every once in a while, you know, and that's not his thing, you know, so it's like sci-fi.
Can't
not
force
his thing.
it, yeah.
And my view is like if you're in
Which
your,
I-
if you're in your 30s and you haven't seen it, like odds are like
Yeah, like I don't, crucify people that they haven't seen either Star Wars or Indiana Jones or, stuff like that. Like if you haven't seen it, okay. I mean, privately I'll think less of you. No. but sometimes you just don't know what people's movies backgrounds are, right? Like you said,
Like,
sometimes
my
they
wife had
didn't
never
have-
seen Indiana Jones, and I remember it blew my mind. I'm like, everyone's seen that movie, and it's like, well, our parents weren't big movie people, and the movies they did watch, that wasn't the stuff that she like watched.
Exactly. Like,
she was
they
really into music,
kind
but-
of like stayed in their own lane of movies and
Yeah.
didn't really venture out to try.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's got their thing they like, and I remember like, wait, you've never seen Indiana Jones? I'm like, all right, tonight, and this is me, so I'm like, we're watching this tonight. And I think back to, I'm like, well, she grew up, music was encouraged. She has an encyclopedic knowledge of music.
I know. I used to play that where you had to guess the song name.
Don't play with her.
She murdered me each time.
Yes, no, she's
I
brutal.
thought I was.
I barely keep up, and I actively try to keep up, and I can't.
So frustrating.
So it's just funny because she has, that's where her passion is. But her dad encouraged that. Always showed her music videos and like she loves going to concerts, and he always like encouraged that. Yeah,
Right.
This is the man who would go to a Backstreet Boy concerts with her when she was a little kid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He was the dad that did that. So she's like, all right, I haven't seen Indiana Jones. All right, so here's another story. There's a lot of stories. Sorry, guys. So we're in my little rinky-dinky apartment. We're dating, and she's like, I've never seen Indiana Jones. All right, we're fucking watching that tonight. Like, sorry, I don't care what our plans are. We're watching this. And I always kind of like, when I'm showing people movies that I'm like really pumped for, I always throw, I'm like, listen, I'm like, if you're not into this movie, don't worry about it. We could like give it a couple little bit.
But we're breaking up later.
Yeah. So here's the thing, right? So, and we've talked about this before, but for the audience, we'll go through it again. With Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, that intro scene is amazing. I'm a firm believer.
One of the best, actually.
I believe, and I don't think I'm kind of going on a ledge here, but I think
Senor
it's
Spielbergo.
I think it's some of the best. That's one of the best ways to introduce a character in a story.
Yeah.
So that scene is playing through the movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're in my house, we're watching this, and I got really hyped. I'm like, I'm watching this right now. Then I'm like, oh fuck it, like I'm gonna feel really bad, right? If she hates this fucking shit, and she's like sitting there for 2 hours, now she'll be a good girlfriend and be like, oh yeah, it's great, it's so much fun, and then just like kind of stare at her phone, like, when is this fucking over? And I remember,
Which I hate, by the way. If you're watching a movie
I
for
gotta,
the first time,
drives me fucking nuts when that happens.
you do not
Don't
put
do
the
that.
phone down or collect the phone or some shit. Like
Yeah.
that. Especially if you're watching a movie for the first time ever.
Some people are getting better with that.
I hope so.
So I'll come back to that because I got a little tidbit about you on that one. So we're watching the intro, like the slow crawl, like Indiana Jones going through the jungle and all this other stuff. And I remember like, oh, the snack was ready. So I pause it real quick to go get the snacks. We come back. And the movie's been on for less than 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, pause. When the movie started, I was like, well, you'll like. She's like, I don't know if I'm going to like it. Because she was like, everyone talks about this movie being a big deal and all that. And like, she was nervous that she wasn't going to like it.
A letdown, yeah.
And I was like, well, don't worry about it. It's a Spielberg movie. Everyone likes Spielberg movies. And she's like, I don't think I've seen a Spielberg movie. And I was like, oh boy, okay, here we go. But now, granted, if you're going to pick the first Spielberg movie, Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark, it's probably one of the ones you should take.
Yeah.
So anyway, so there's that. And I'm like, oh, fuck, here we go. All right. So I pause, I get the snacks, I come back, and I was like, listen, if you're not into this movie, I'm not going to force you to watch it. We can watch something else or we can do something. Like, I'm not going to force you into this. Don't waste 2 hours.
Did you do that because you, in the back of your head, are like, if she doesn't like this, this is going to hurt.
So I'm super self-conscious when when I watch movies with other people because movies, so not to get into the weeds with it, but like I said, I grew up very poor, like no heat in the winter poor.
Yeah.
That's just how it was for me. I mean, far a million miles away from that now, but movies is what I had.
Yeah.
We didn't have cable. I didn't know how to read. So all I had was movies, and I had I had a strong imagination, and I was a little lonely too. So I would just watch these movies all the time, and I would just like imagine being in them, and just there was such a heavy attachment to them.
I was very similar. I'll give you a little bit of personal stuff after.
Yeah. So And I was like, okay, cool. This is movies and cinema is very important to me. But I also so I get a little self-conscious when I'm like, you got to watch this movie. And then they watch it like, oh, it's okay.
I know.
So even if they're loving it, I'm like, shit, this is like, to me, it was always awkward to watch because I also, since I was a little lonely, I always watched the movies by myself. So I didn't really have experience
The
watching movies
feedback
with
of people.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's that. So I'm like, listen, I'm like, Sam, like, if you're not really liking this movie, don't worry about it. We'll watch something you like, or we'll find something we both haven't seen and we'll do that. The movie hasn't even finished The Jungle Crawl, and she's like, no, I'm into this movie right now. So that shows you the power of that intro scene where she knows nothing about this movie, and she's like, I'm fucking in. Let's go. And we watched that. Then I showed her all three of them, and I don't think I can't remember if she's seen the fourth one or she hasn't, but I've told her.
The Crystal Skull one?
I told her it never happened, and we're never going to watch it.
No, they're gonna redeem themselves. I feel like with the one that's coming out soon.
Going back to about remakes and fixing an IP, they fucking brother.
Well, isn't he behind it, Spielberg, or is someone else?
I think he's not directing it.
He's producing it probably.
Because I know he like kind of like back channels when the fourth one came out. He was like, listen, when you're working with friends, like, sometimes it's hard to say no to things and just not because
George Lucas.
I mean, George Lucas, that I'm so envious of the worlds he can make and the characters he can come up with. That son of a bitch cannot write dialogue to save his life, but he is a visionary and a fucking genius.
Yeah.
And now that's why I think the original Star Wars movies did so well is that he surrounded himself with people that complimented him.
Right.
So I think, and with the later movies, he was directing a lot of them and it got a little rougher, and it's because his dialogue, it's like the story. Now I think the prequel story is amazing. I think it's actually really good. It's a really
the concepts, you mean?
Yeah. The general story of it is like, because essentially people have dissected the prequels. So it's essentially, it's a story, it's not just, about the father.
Yeah, like Anakin Skywalker's philosophy on sand was actually a correlation to blah, 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 blah.
Essentially, like hundreds of videos on that.
I know what you're saying.
But it's like, essentially, it's like, all right, here's like a corrupt empire. Like, listen, the Republic falls, but it's kind of busted too. Like, that was the whole point of his story is like, listen, if it was so perfect, it wouldn't have fallen.
Yeah.
But he can't write dialogue. So it's...
No.
So my quick little excerpt about you was, I remember a while back you gave me a ticket to go see a screener, and it was the movie Joy.
Yes.
And I remember because you just said, you're like, you're part of the guild, so you're like, hey man, I got a screener for this. You want to come? And I was like, all right. You know me, I'm always down for a movie. And we saw Joy, which is not a bad movie. It's okay.
It's okay.
It's like a one-time watch.
Okay. Yeah.
I always.
It wasn't super memorable.
It wasn't.
It was around the time where Jennifer Lawrence was like the it actress.
She was.
So like you had to see like every movie.
And honestly, with that, what I call is like those are like the one shots. Like it's like you can kind of, if you see it, okay, it's not a bad experience. They're not wasting your time.
Mm-hmm.
But if you haven't seen it, I'm not going to say you should really see Joy.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're bored, it's like if you're out of stuff to watch, I'm like, oh, if you like Jennifer Lawrence, well, here's another well acted movie.
Yeah.
But I remember this is where I was like, okay. We go down, it's in the theater, we sit down, and I look over, the movie's about to start, and you take out your phone, and you put it into airplane mode. And I'm like, that's my man right there. Me and him, we know. Like, because everyone, what do they do? When the credits come up, the phone comes up, and they start, all right, let me do a quick text. Let me make sure I'm on silent.
Wow, I didn't even know that you remember
I caught that
funny.
to this day. Because it's like, because you either get a couple of people, you get people who are on their phone, and usually most people are checking to make sure it's silent.
I will bitch slap someone if they're like on their bright white phone, the bright white screen on their phones and the movie's going on. I want to.
That drives me nuts. Because it's distracting for me.
Yes.
And also a part of me is like, if I'm watching a movie with you, we're sharing the experience. And I also I'm a big fan of, I like plays. I'm not I don't like Broadway shows and like all that stuff. I've seen a few. That's not my style.
Yeah.
But I saw a seminar with Alan Rickman, which was one of the best.
R.I.P. Alan Rickman.
R.I.P. But I remember I took but you would not do that at a play. So is what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
But so I remember just sitting down with you, and me and you were close, but like I don't think I'd actually seen a movie with you yet. We always talked about films. I think or actually we'd like watch movies at home and stuff, but this is like a theater experience now.
Yeah.
And I remember you pull out your phone, and part of me is like, I'm not gonna say anything, but I'm like, really, dude? You're gonna what are you gonna fucking tweet? And I just physically saw on your sky, totally like creeped on your phone, and you hit airplane mode, and I was just like, all right, me and you, we get it.
Wow, I don't even remember that, to be honest.
Because you were probably on auto. I mean, this was years ago.
Yeah.
But I remember you just like, airplane mode. I'm like, all right, this guy, he knows what's up. He knows what's up.
I don't want any text messages. I don't want phone calls coming through. I don't want none of that.
Listen,
I just
we are
want to
busy
be
enough as it is.
I just want 2 hours to
Give me
watch
2 hours by myself.
this story.
Yeah.
Please. Thank you.
But I get like super self-conscious like watching movies with people, which there's a whole rabbit. I'm sure a therapist or a shrink would love to dissect that one. But now that's obviously not really the case anymore. But it's also like really hard. Like me and my wife, when we try to watch movies, it's really tough because, we have the kid, and it's like even just to lock down 2 hours to watch a movie, she can't sit still. And this is why I think she doesn't watch a lot of movies. She's watched a ton of TV, and I think she has some really good opinions about. She watches some rough shot stuff, but she knows quality when she sees it. And she will be the first one to like, no, you will like this.
Yeah.
She knows my taste very well, obviously. But like when we watch movies, she'll like whip out the phone, or we have to pause it because she has to do something, or I have to, it's like.
And you know what's so crazy?
It gets rough.
It gets rough to like when even like, because I've been noticing my dad, who's in his late 60s, is taking out his phone now, and like during movies or like during conversations too, which is wild to me.
Because they would never.
They never. But
I was never like that either. And then once the kid showed up, I've noticed I'm on my phone more.
Yeah.
Because I find that I have less time in my day, like larger blocks, to catch up on blogs. Now
Your me time, basically. Just in your own little space.
I mean, we all have it. It's like, all right, I got an hour before kill. Let me just jump on. Let me check my stuff, But this, I don't really have that. So now I got, all right, the kid is sitting down. He's eating a sandwich. Let me just check stuff right. And I catch myself. And now it's the addiction, that phone addiction shit.
I hate it too, man. It's tough because I'm trying to essentially, I like to call it deprogram yourself to just like, if you and I are having this conversation now, we want to mostly be talking about, what we're talking about and stay in the conversation. And also when you're just like in a group setting at a dinner, like with your friends or with other couples,
there's a
or
weird
you're on a date or something.
with it. And I have a theory with it, not to keep talking over you, but my theory is this. If you remember when you and I first were going to college, right? Cell phones started coming out. I remember when the iPhone came out, and smartphones were not a thing, but like regular flip phones were. And this was a thing everybody did. You're at a bar by yourself, waiting for your crew to show up, right? Let's say you get there a little earlier, or you're at a restaurant, or you're at the theater, right? But you just sit at the bar. What do? You pull out your phone. Even if you don't have text messages to read, you just stare, because where else are you going to stare? And I think that, and it was a status thing too. It's like, oh man, he's on his phone at the bar waiting for his friends. Man, maybe he's a little busy. What the hell's he,
Yeah, yeah.
Now, and I think we're that generation. So I think that's just been kind of just stuck in our heads that that's perfectly fine to do that.
I know, which is
so prime example, like when me and my wife were first dating a million years ago, and I know for a fact she didn't even realize she was doing it, because everyone has done this at least once. She's standing, we're in our kitchen or something, and I remember she was on, I was talking to her about it. We were having a conversation. We're going back and not an argument. We were just talking about something, right? And she had her phone in her hand, and I think she was texting someone back. So she's talking to me and texting at the same time, which I'm whatever, right? But I remember she did this one, and she did it one, and I know for a fact she didn't even realize she did it. She was like, hang on one sec. Like, she was finishing the text over talking to the person in front of her.
Yeah.
And I remember it's just like, at one of those like moments where you just, you're dating, right? So you fight every 10 minutes, but then you laugh every 3 hours, right? So, and I remember just like Sam, I was like, you either talk to me or you talk to that phone. I'm not fighting with that phone. And I just said it like that. It wasn't an argument. It wasn't like I wasn't trying to be short or a dick, or I was just like, hey, like, listen, either talk to me or the phone. I'm not competing with that.
Because let's be honest, it was a little rude.
But she didn't even realize. She was like, and then when I kind of like,
when
she
you
was
like brought
she was
your
like, oh
attention,
shit. She's like, I'm sorry. Like, it didn't even register that she was like, oh yeah. She's like, no, that's not okay.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like, but now fast forward to this, like everyone's doing that now.
Yeah. Even the old boomers, if you will, they're doing it too now. Like,
which just blows my mind that your dad is doing it.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, like he's hanging out with his other buddies that are in their 60s,
now, so.
and they're all on the phones. Like they'll have conversations face to face, and then 5 minutes later, they're all three of them are on their phones.
Which
checking
blows my
stuff.
mind because your family are like the kings of social, like just being social butterflies. Like
Now,
just-
granted, like the professions too, they're all doctors. Most of his friends are
Mm.
doctors, so they do have to check on patients and stuff like that. But other times they're just
I mean, I'm on
checking
call
like,
7 days a
they're-
week. Like my phone.
They're
is
like
always
instead
on,
of
but-
like the equivalent of memes on their phones. Like that's what they're doing.
Yeah,
Like
that's what
they're
they
on
do,
like their
yeah.
group chats.
It's funny when you
and,
see
like,
the older generation like be like 3 years behind you, but in like the way you handle the internet, like it's funny.
and the worst too is like my dad will listen to messages with audio and like play it on the phone
Oh,
and loud, and I'm like, you can't do that, man. You can put on headphones and listen to it, or play it low, but you can't like blast it
So-
right while we're having a conversation. or
I
something.
find this that like my buddy's dad, who's an immigrant, so you'll probably he's from Turkey, right? He's been here since the '60s, right? So and he's got a smartphone. So this man, he's like a second father to me. I love this man. Speaks busted English, like but busted Turkish. So when he goes back to Turkey, they don't understand him too because it's so busted.
Yeah,
So
he's in between.
but he was here in the 60s and 70s. So Motorhead, Ozzy, Led Zeppelin, like that's his music. He has great music, right? So he'll be in his living room. He'll work all day. The guy works like 15 to 16 hours a day, busting his ass, right? Comes home, puts on his the Wild West channel, right? He's either watching he's either watching the football game, European football, or he's watching
Goddamn right.
the only one, or he's watching like the westerns, right? But then you'll see him with his earbuds in backwards. We've tried. we're not even gonna go there with him.
It's comfortable. It's comfortable.
Yeah, yeah. It's comfortable. Yeah, this is how it is. So, for the record, I say this to his face. I'm not talking shit about him behind his back. I've known this man since I was a child. So, but he has his phone with the earbuds on because he found that people post concerts on the phone on YouTube.
Oh.
So he's watching like concerts of like Led Zeppelin and Rolling Stones and Motorhead and like Ace of all these all his music, and he's loving it because he's been to some of these super famous shows. He's been going to these concerts forever. But it's just funny to watch. He'll have his TV on and then he's just staring at his phone, and this thing is fucking blasting all day, and like trying to get him on Wi-Fi as a whole thing. So it's just funny that like another like old man
Yeah.
just staring at like his phone.
videos, like comedy things too, like jokes, like all these things. He'll just watch on his phone and play the volume without headphones, and I'm like, oh my god, why do you do this to me?
That's awesome. I could just love the imagine. I could see your dad just sitting there on his phone.
And he's like cracking at these terrible jokes, and I know they're terrible because I see them afterwards. I'm like, why do you think this is funny? It's like, this is not funny, but he's like, yeah, it's funny. But yeah, he unfortunately the same thing that's plaguing today's generation, the older people. Once
It
they've
hits them, too.
yeah, it hits them too.
It's funny, like my father-in-law. He's not a big, crazy phone guy, or at least he wasn't. He kind of is now. But he likes to tinker with stuff. He's like a gadget guy, So he likes to like get the Fire Sticks and do all that stuff with it, or like find new ways to like work. Because I built him a computer years ago, and like I kind of help him with his tech stuff. But like I don't really have to help him too much because he's very self-sufficient on that. He likes, because he's a retired old guy, so he's just like messing around with stuff. He's either hanging out with the grandkids or playing with these gadgets. But his phone, he loves like those slot machines, the slot machine apps. Like, so he's playing the slot machine, not for like real money. He's just having fun. He's playing it. And then
So it makes sense that your wife's addiction to Candy Crush.
you notice that, right? She actually doesn't play Candy Crush anymore. She got to a level I didn't realize you could get to in Candy Crush, but now she's on another one. But same thing. She's even said it's pretty much the same thing, but there's like an extra step. To her defense, she's never spent any money. So
Well, that was the problem. I remember the very famous story you told me where like she was paying money for Candy Crush, and like you were like, you had the joint account, and you're like,
actually, kind of. That's pseudo true. I don't think she. So that was, I think, Frontierville, where she spent some money, but nothing real. Like not like whatever. I think she like bought a Slurpee specifically because it got points to it. What had happened with Candy Crush, and this is years before, there was unlimited data.
the data thing. Yes, I'm
It
not
was
thinking of money. I'm thinking the data thing where she went over.
So I told her she was going over on our data plan, and this is like before they were unlimited plans, and you were getting charged some pretty heavy
No,
money. And
remember?
we didn't have.
Do you remember that time where like you had to be careful like how much you
I
were
would.
spending?
You would get the text saying,
get the
"Hey,
text,
you're about to go over your
and
data."
you're like, I can't watch videos.
Yep.
And you better hope it's towards the end of the month, not in the middle.
Exactly. And I remember, So I remember telling her, like, it was like around we were getting married, and we were fucking broke, bro. We were paying for a wedding. She's still working in TV. I'm a janitor. Like, we ain't got no fucking money. Right? And I remember telling her, I'm like, listen, if you go over the data because of if you go over the data again, because I know, it's because of Candy Crush, I'm like, I'm taking Candy Crush away from you.
You're like scolding her like a child.
Literally like a fucking child. And I'm just like, and to give you a definition, audience of my wife, the definition of a strong, independent woman is like an insult to her. Like you're not telling her to do anything.
She walks her own beat.
Exactly. You're not telling her she can't do anything. Like, you know what I mean? She's that woman where she's like, oh, you can't be CEO. She's like, fuck you, I'll bankrupt your company. Like, she's that woman. She's like, oh no, I don't want to be the CEO. Yeah. I'm gonna fire your CEO. It's like one of those things. So, but I'm like, hey, listen, like, we can't afford you to go over the data plan. So if this happens, you're losing Candy Crush off your phone. So one day we're separated, right? She's doing her thing. I think she's in the car with her cousins because like they're doing like wedding stuff. And I get the alert that the data plan went over.
Dun, dun, dun.
And then I've been told that she was in the car driving and she was genuinely nervous. This like the boss.
Yeah.
Is literally, she's nervous that I'm going to, because she's like, goes there because she's like, or equivalent of good, just goes, can you tell me what that text was? Please tell me it wasn't that I went over my data because he's going to take Candy Crush away. She was nervous that I was going to take Candy Crush away. And for the record, I did take Candy Crush away from her phone. Which was better because she was actually I shouldn't have this on my phone because I'll play it while I'm driving and stuff like that. But yeah, so essentially, so we I had to change data plans to unlimited and pay the extra fee because Candy Crush was becoming a problem.
But yeah, it goes back to that addiction to the phones, man.
Yeah, that's why I was going with my father-in-law, is that he likes these slot machine apps, but then he'll go on YouTube about like algorithms for those apps that he's playing. Like, he goes in deep.
No.
He's on there's a whole section on YouTube about this shit. I was like,
oh no.
I was like, oh no. He just sits there,
Yeah.
I don't think it's that bad anymore. He like when he's just like, now it's summer, so he's outside, he's playing handball. He's
I can imagine,
he's actually an active guy. He was just bored in the winter, but I was like laughing because I'm like, it even hits that generation.
Yeah.
Like it
really
like,
does. It really does.
That's why I laugh at that. That's why I was like,
That's
I'm
crazy.
like, okay. I'm like, sure. But yeah, so I was like laughing when I go to see a movie with you, and like the first thing you do is you put it on airplane mode.
Dude,
like, that's
so I wanted to get this story about like movies because I'm very similar to you, where like I had such a big imagination as a kid, where after I would see a movie with my brother, my dad, or my friends, I would go home and I would take my toys and try and think of the sequel to the movie I just saw.
okay.
So like Air Force One. I remember I saw Air Force One with my dad and my brother. I'd go home, I'd take my Ghostbusters helicopter, and now instead of the movie being on a plane, it's on a helicopter. And I would do all these sound effects. Like, you can ask my parents, like, I would make all these sound effects.
Oh,
I would act out, I would act out these dialogue. I don't know if I wrote down lines. I think that was later. But
Oh boy.
but I was into it. Like, and I would, I would see Batman and I would have all my Batman gear and, pretend to act out the sequel or something like that. I would love just like, I just saw a story, right? I saw a movie and I wanted the experience to continue. Mm-hmm. So I would take my toys and I would take, whatever was swirling in my freakish mind here and just like create something with my toys or something with just me acting it out,
Right.
Because I think I told you this too. I wanted to be an actor when I was a kid, and
Surprising on that one.
and I went out on auditions too. Believe it or not, guys, I could have been I could have been a contender instead of a bum.
You legit did something. I didn't even know that. Wait, you ain't getting away from that one. Wind this back.
So
you did auditions.
I did auditions.
You went to some roll calls.
I went to an audition. It was initially for commercials.
Hey man, it's good money in commercials.
And
some real good money in
I
commercials.
think it was a connection via my dad and patient or whatever. But anyway, it was for a.
Was this like an actual union gig, or was this like
dude? Yeah, like it was. I remember the auditions were being held in a building, believe it or not, right near the World Trade Center, and I went the summer before 9/11, or yeah, I went to the.
So you were young.
I was young. I was young.
Okay.
But I remember the commercials for Tommy Hilfiger cologne, and I think one of the lines, I was 12 or 13 at the time, and one of the lines was like, "Oh man, something along the lines of, man, I just put on this cologne and I'm gonna get all the ladies tonight," or something like that.
Ooh.
But mind you, I didn't write it.
Well, obviously,
okay?
it's good.
But
an
I was
actual
so
commercial,
good that I got a call back.
No shit, really?
Now I didn't pursue it because guess who didn't want to be a stage mom and didn't want me to really
I can
pursue
totally see her not like with your best.
Exactly. You know
But
I'm-
for the record, bro, national commercial, that's some real money.
Yeah.
That's like real money.
It was Tommy Phil. I remember, and then I talked to like the agent after my audition, and I think she was a little freaked out too because the instructor or whatever who was running the program or the auditions was like this very flamboyant and foreign dude. I forget if he was like French or Italian or something, and he was like in your face, like not everyone makes it.
Oh,
Okay,
that
you have to
shit. Here we
stand
go.
like
Here we
really
go.
getting in the face and like trying to deter like the nobodies. And me, I was like, okay, when's my audition happening? Whatever, you know. I remember it so vividly. But then that was the end of my acting. I did act in school plays and stuff like that, and you know, I would just love like
Imagine if you actually tried to get through that.
Man, I don't know if I'd be a good actor, to be honest with you.
I remember not too long ago, like a couple of years back, I was thinking, and I had to look it up. I was like, I know like there's so many actors. There's so many people trying to break in to the industry. And Mike was like, I'm like, listen, I know there's probably about 50-60% of them are doing it because they love acting.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's a big chunk who are doing it for a paycheck, right? Like they
Yeah.
want to be famous for whatever reason, right?
Yeah.
And I remember looking, I'm like, well, people like there are, just character actors. I'm like, what's the average salary for like just like if you did like had a minor role in a movie? And it's like livable. Like there's some money behind it. I was like, oh, here it is. Like there's actually, it's the mega stars that make some real crazy money, but like character actors do very well.
Yeah, like if you get enough gigs and you know the right people and have consistent enough work, you could be more than comfortable. I think.
mean, there's an actress in like internet personality. Her name's Felicia Day.
Yeah, I
She's
think she was in
prominent in Geek-
Supernatural.
She's in Supernatural,
Yeah.
yep, and I think she was also in Buffy, but I could be wrong. But she's been in a lot of stuff. I mean, I watched her when she was writing The Guild, and like she's big in geek community and Twitch and all this stuff. And she found Critical Role. She's the one who gave them a platform. But I remember I read her autobiography. And she was talking about how she made her living off of doing commercials. And I remember she was talking about some commercials that I remember watching as a kid. I was like, oh, shit, no kid. And she was like, I could have just been doing that forever and I would have been fine.
Do you know that the woman that plays Flo in those progressive commercials is making like 20 mil a year or something like that?
Fucking crazy.
And also the most interesting man, remember the Dos
I
Equis
love
guy?
the Dos Equis
he was
guy.
making bank too.
He was one of my favorite. Like, that's a great commercial.
Yeah, he was making it like you can like voiceover actors.
That's right. Flo, not Flo from the Sprint. Is it? No, it's the.
Can you hear me now?
No,
Verizon guy?
No. Oh my God. What's
Oh,
her
actually,
name?
we went
She's
to
actually like a comedian. She's a stand-up comedian. Oh my God.
The
what's her name?
AT&T girl?
Yes.
What's her name? She's like Ukrainian.
I hate
too.
that. Like that's how she's to be referred to. Is Milana Ventrump?
Yeah.
Ventruba. I'm sorry, I'm butchering your name, but yeah, she's like a stand-up comedian. I remember seeing her on At Midnight, the old Chris Hardwick TV show.
Oh yeah, for sure.
She was a regular on there, and I think she's actually gonna be part of the Marvel universe.
No, I remember seeing she's on a YouTube skit with another girl. I forgot the name of the thing. They would like be on the couch interviewing people, and it'd be like it was almost like the Eric Andre show, where like the interviews were super awkward and like really make the guests uncomfortable.
That's
That was
awesome.
that type of vibe.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh my God, I'm butchering her YouTube skit thing. I'm actually gonna look it up now, but yeah, she's pretty great.
That's why I laugh. It's like these. Yeah, it's like the fact that like Flo is making like 20 mil on these commercials. I mean, hey. Make it. If you're making bread, man, I ain't gonna stop you from anything.
And voiceover actors.
I mean, I can only imagine what like Bruce Buffer makes. Like he's the guy. He's the UFC announcer.
Let's get ready to rumble.
No, that's his brother.
Oh.
Bruce Buffer is the UFC one.
By the way, the Milana YouTube thing is Live Prude Girls. It's not. Yeah. I would recommend it. I went through a YouTube black hole one summer watching these skits. They're super funny. They're just awkward, and they're actually really well written and really thought out.
Yeah, Michael Buffer is the Let's Get Rid of the Rumble for boxing. Bruce Buffer is the UFC announcer, and he's
Yes,
just
that's
as
right.
iconic.
That's right. I heard Buffer, and I immediately thought of Michael.
No, I mean that's the thing. Is like but no, that's the thing is that
Imagine
they're
living in a
brothers.
family where your older brothers are more famous. In the same
Did you
profession.
know? Like I think he trademarked "Let's Get Rid of the Rumble"
Of course he would.
because that's brilliant. Like,
Yeah.
because that was his whole shtick. You
Yeah.
know. I mean, they brought him back for the Tyson fight.
The one he did with Roy Jones Jr.
Yep, they brought him back for that.
The funniest thing about that fight was the commentary.
I
from
knew
Snoop
that's
Dogg.
where you're going with that. It was so good. Oh man, it looks like my uncle's fighting at the barbecue. I was that. Oh man, that was so good.
Oh my god.
It's like
I need Snoop Dogg to comment more fights, please.
the thing is, it's like people like think of like Snoop Dogg is like kind of like a joke or a parody on himself. That man knows how to market himself so well.
And he's pretty, market himself, and he's knowledgeable too, a lot about football.
And
fights.
Yeah, he knows what he's. I mean, don't get me wrong. That guy's baked out of his mind.
Exactly.
He's on
Like
another
he
planet at
definitely
this point.
smokes weed like there's no tomorrow.
But he's a smart businessman.
he's
He knows how to,
well-connected.
very well. He knows how to he knows when opportunities. He knows what he's doing.
I mean,
And apparently too, from what I've heard, I think my wife Sam, she's gone to one of his concerts. She says he's he's one of the hardest working performers. Like comes up old school, does his set, no breaks, it's live. He's not dubbing anything. Like he's just coming out.
no,
he's doing
his voice
thing.
hasn't changed since
You know?
in the 20 years.
But it's like that old school stuff where it's no pageantry, none of that fake shit. He's going out there and he's really hustling
Yeah.
it out even now when he doesn't need to.
Yeah.
He still does it, which is
Yeah.
great. But that was a fucking tangent. But
And man, anytime to speak about Snoop Dogg is a good time for me. But yeah, no. So like, I wanted to be an actor when I was a kid, and that's why I love movies so much, because they were just this storytelling, and I wanted to continue it. And then as I got older, I got into writing, and
Right.
then that's when it shifted from wanting to be in front of the camera, which I still kind of do. Like if like my friends were to ask me to be an extra or like do a few lines in a movie, I will 100% jump
I
on
know
it.
for a fact you were the first one to jump at that. Whereas I'm like, I ain't doing that.
But I shifted more to just like creating these stories, like writing them down and story building and stuff like that. That's when it kind of shifted for me, and I think that's why in my current profession as a television producer, like any opportunities I have to write copy for either promos or for the show I'm actually making, that's where I get my little cheap thrills, if you will.
You got to get it where you can get it, right?
Yeah.
Like it's.
Because of course on the side, if I have time and I'm not being a lazy bum, I'll definitely want to sit down and write like a short story or a script or something like that, and continue to like create. Because every time I have like these concepts, either it's from a movie I just watched or a video game I just played, of like writing a story that's either a spin-off of it or something that has those elements, but I create it, with my own little spit on it or something like that,
Right.
So, movies for me, just like you, were an escape. And I had a very, while you may have been allowed to watch all of it, I was not.
Yeah. Granted, I'm not saying the way I would do. I don't think I would do that for my kid. But,
No, but so I was mostly exposed to, and I'm sure many other kids were, the Disney animated movies.
the Disney movies.
Yeah.
There was a lot of that in my house too. I watched all of them. Like that
Yeah.
was like a thing. Like that was. I still love those movies. I think they're great. I'm not like a Disney head. I'm not going into the parks with the ears and shit. That's a little weird to me. But. And ironically, I'm not a big fan of musicals, so I always hated the music part.
Interesting that you say that. So I want you to guess, what do you think were my two top movies that I watched as a kid? Disney
movies?
Disney animated movies I watched as a kid. Just guess. If you get this, I will like shake your hand.
It's got to be animated, right?
It has to be animated.
Shit.
And think of, because you and I are basically similar ages, so we
Around. Okay.
two. I'll give you. I know
Two?
the two that I watch religiously, and I terrorized both babysitters and my grandma watching, because I would watch it on repeat. You'll probably never guess it. If you do,
Was
I think that says a lot of.
Was Aladdin one of them?
No.
No.
No,
Okay.
I would watch it, but not as much as these two. These two were
Are
like
they- okay, so throw me a bone here. Are they older ones or like I'm talking like OG, like the 50s? Or
No, they were definitely in that peak of Disney.
Oliver and Company.
No,
Oh, okay.
two. There's a third one that now that I think of it is, but definitely the two.
Okay. See, that's the thing. There's not many that.
I'll give you a hint. Think of
Okay.
My Ego.
Well, okay, so that's not really narrowing it down, my friend.
No.
It's
Like, think of me.
I'm drawing a blank, bro. What are you doing?
Like if someone were to have my name in a movie, I would love
Fucking
that
Little
movie.
Mermaid? Are you kidding me? Fucking Little Mermaid. Fucking Little Mermaid.
Okay, that's one. Now guess the other one. It's already bad for me, I know, but guess the other one. It's probably going to be worse.
Probably.
Now that I've said it's probably worse.
I'm curious if you're gonna grab mine, because there's. I got. It's not The Rescuers, right?
No,
No. Okay, that's not your style.
no. Believe me, the movie I'm thinking of, you wouldn't think is my style, but I don't know. Maybe it was.
I mean, what? Oh, it's not Dumbo, is it?
Nope.
What is it?
Beauty and the Beast.
I mean, it won a fucking Oscar. I'll give you that. But okay, I can I can see Beauty and the Beast. I can see that one.
Maybe I'm a hopeless romantic. What can I say?
I think you are.
But those two, I would torture my babysitters and my grandma for watching on repeat. Now the third one is one with dinosaurs.
Oh, well, Disney wasn't Land Before Time, right?
Was it?
Right, and I think that was I thought. Why do I feel like that was like Fox or something? Or
Well, Land Before Time was an animated movie. Aladdin I liked, but not as much as those two.
see, okay.
So you had one. You had to go to Disney. Did you have a good?
I had two.
You had two.
Okay.
And none. We
I have three.
You have three.
It's absolutely three. I'm curious if you'll get them. I'll give you this. In the decades,
Yeah.
they're broad. So there's an older one around our age group, and then one a little older.
Fantasia.
No, but I did love I loved Fantasia 2000 though, but it's not on my list.
They're Disney movies, right?
All Disney animated.
All
movies.
Disney animated movies.
Yes, Disney
Okay,
animated.
all Disney animated. Okay.
One's a cheat, so it's not all Disney animated. But it's animated, but it's not Disney-ish.
It's animated, but
It's
not
Disney adjacent.
Disney adjacent.
But that one.
Pinocchio?
No, I hated Pinocchio.
Okay.
Dun, 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 dun.
Hunchback of Notre Dame.
No, but I did like it. But that fucking one is dark as fuck.
I know.
Like
I know.
the whipping scene is like rough for a Disney movie.
Yeah, yeah. Snow White.
Nope.
It's so funny because like you grew up with these, but then you forget their
There's
names.
so many. I mean, don't forget they came out with one every year,
Yeah.
essentially.
You didn't. You said Fantasia. You didn't. You.
No, it's not Fantasia. Around the same time, I'll give you this. It's one of them is in that like time frame. Like it's an older one.
An older one.
Yeah, color, but it's older.
Oh man. Lion King.
No.
No. Really?
Mm-hmm. Curious if you're gonna. I'm curious if
Prince of Egypt.
No.
You didn't like that. Page Master.
Nope. They're not obscure.
They're not obscure.
They're
okay.
not obscure.
So it's like
Because you're
big
going
ones.
deep down. No, they're absolute big ones, like super big ones. Like you can easily find like their stuffed animals at toy stores and stuff. Like I'm not, yeah. So when you get Page Master, I'm like, oh, you're going deep.
You know who liked Page Master? This guy right here. I love Page
not
Master.
bad. I'm not against Page Master, but it's definitely not.
Not Hercules. You wouldn't.
Actually, Hercules. I've learned to appreciate Hercules as an adult. Bruce loves Hercules because he loves it's literally gospel singers for Zeus stories. It's awesome, and I've rewatched it with him because he likes the music, and it's really funny to see. And I'm like, this one was really fucking clever.
And also Hades
Is awesome.
really good
James
character
Woods
in
is
that,
so
yeah.
good in that.
Yeah.
I would put, if I had to rank like my top 5 Disney movies, Hercules is on there, but it's not my
Interesting.
top 3.
James and Giant Peach.
No. Come on, man. Come on.
Mulan.
Good, but no. You got one more guess because you're getting close to just listing them all at this point.
Oh, man, what am I missing? We didn't mention it already, did we?
I'm not going to tell you that part. That's just pretty much telling you if that was true.
Aladdin was one.
Aladdin is one of them.
Okay, I'm trying to get the older one. Disney older one.
You give? You go.
I'm gonna have to tell me.
Okay. So my top 3 would be The Jungle Book.
Wow.
I love.
You know, I wouldn't have guessed that for you.
I really liked Rikki Tikki Tavi, those books, that author, like all those stories. I loved animal stories. Yep.
The Jungle Book.
The Jungle Book, and then it's Aladdin,
Okay.
and then it's Toy Story.
Oh wow. Okay.
Okay. Toy Story, I remember was the first time after leaving. I remember I went to go
When did
see
the
that.
first one come out?
1999 or something. No, I think or even earlier than that. I remember
that's-
seeing
95.
95. I remember, so I was not supposed to see this movie, but I got to see it. So I was at my friend's house and they were going to the movies and I was at the house. So I was like, all right, they're going to go. I'm going to go home. Right. I remember his mom just like they were like getting their coats on. I was just hanging out. I'm like, all right, I was like, all right, when you guys go, I'll just walk home. It's fine. Like, I wasn't like, oh, can I go too? Like, that wasn't my style. So I remember his mom was like, do you want to come? I'm like, fuck yeah, I want to go. And I remember I got home and it blew my mind. First off, it was a Disney movie that didn't have like big musical numbers.
Yeah.
So I was like, whoa. I love that because I hated the music.
Little
numbers.
Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast. So we may have not been friends.
No, we definitely wouldn't have been. I remember just like being so like I'm like no, I'm not. Like I could not stand the musical numbers. Like that drove me nuts. Not that they were bad. It's just I was a kid who just did that wasn't my thing. And I remember Toy Story was the Disney movie that didn't have that. Plus, no one had seen anything like that before. The toys, the digital animation, none of that. That was the first Pixar movie.
Yeah, that's what put Pixar on the map.
Yeah, but so that was definitely a big like what the fuck moment in my life. Aladdin was just fun, man. Like you got jazz
Williams.
and swing music with like I love that like Disney always like circumvent like they'll have like a
Which is
theme,
interesting because you didn't.
but then they take the direct opposite for the music.
Yeah.
It's like Hercules is the Greeks, this like, stoic, cool ass story. And then it's gospel music.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, Jungle Book I always like because it was kind of like that, the Southern Bayou kind of like music, it's just like ooby doo, it's like, it's kind of just that, the blues from like New Orleans, that style, just that laid back, but like pop music,
Yeah. So it's interesting because you said you didn't really dig like the musical animated stuff, but Aladdin had a lot of musical numbers.
I mean,
but you maybe
I love that
the
story.
energy of the music.
I always
guess.
liked kind of like those kind of like that. I was always like more drawn to every time they would do like historical stuff. I always liked.
I'm gonna spare you people the horror of me singing.
Yes,
because I
please.
can't.
Yes, please. Don't murder my mics doing that. But yeah, no. So it was always things that I always liked, but also like the history and the culture in the Middle East and like
I think
early
that's why I
parts of
liked
Asia was always definitely like something I always was drawn to. So just seeing
Yeah.
an animated show and a cartoon about that was
I think that's why I liked Moon Knight. I don't know, it's a weird tangent, but I like Moonlight because
I have
it was
yet to see
Egyptian.
it. I kind of I
Yeah.
should see it though. I
Yeah.
have to watch that. It's on my list.
Well, it's not a spoiler to tell you that there's Egyptian mythology.
I know the
within.
comic.
Yeah,
I know
so-
the comic.
exactly.
Yeah,
So, maybe that's why I dug it so much because I love stories like that. Okay, so Aladdin, Toy Story.
Jungle Book. I love that. Was my favorite one. I used to watch that all the time.
It was The Land Before Time, The Beauty and the Beast, and The Little
Land Before
Mermaid.
Time.
Yeah,
Okay.
I love dinosaurs.
Yeah.
I would have toy dinosaurs if I could grab them. Yeah.
That's the thing is like I would go from watching like all these Disney movies and then like watching like Apocalypse Now. It was like, granted, I didn't know what the fuck was going on.
That was college. Because like as it tends to be, your movie selections obviously grow as you grow.
Right.
I think Jurassic Park, because I like dinosaurs, obviously.
Right.
Was like the big.
That also
segue.
blew up the world when
Blu-
that came out.
it
Like
was a-
that
it
was
a world phenomenon.
that was a moment.
World
like,
phenomenon movie. And then, as you get older, you get, action movies because that was big in our time. And, The Matrix was really another one that was like,
Well, talk
besides the
about-
action, the story itself
Oh,
was like, what?
Finally, like when there's moments where they change it up.
Yeah.
And that's one of those. Like I remember
Matrix
when
was a
Jurassic Park came out.
trendsetter.
Here's the best part, talking about people who haven't seen like the tentpole movies. Once again, my wife had not seen Jurassic Park. And the new one was coming out, Jurassic World.
Okay.
She was like, oh, cool. And I'm like, oh, no, that's the third one. Like, it's the fourth one technically in the series. She's like, what? And I'm like, oh, you haven't seen Jurassic Park? She's like, no. I'm like, all right, well, here's another Spielberg movie. So, and I showed her, and I remember this was like maybe 5-6 years ago. And I showed her Jurassic Park. And a part of me is like, it's been a while since I've seen this. Does this hold up?
It does.
Holy shit, does it hold up? Like just the CGI on. She was like, holy shit. I was like, this actually holds up for something from the 90s. So I was that was like a little like another little tip. I was like, all right, here's another movie she hasn't seen. But yet when she watched it, she was like, oh, I'm like, and I remember just going, oh, this actually holds up pretty good.
Yeah, it's one of those classic movies that like, and this goes back to you how like you watching Shawshank and the dialogue still holds up. I think Jurassic Park, the spectacle, the moments, the kid actors I think are really great too. Like you remember those moments, like guys taking shit, and then he gets eaten by a dinosaur, like,
you get that.
Lamau,
and it's just like the hunt scene where like the guy's hunting the raptors and winds up there hunting
well,
him.
I
and it's like-
think one of the scariest movie moments is when the two kids are hiding from the raptors in the kitchen. Like there's
that used
hardly
to freak me
there's
out.
hardly any music. I don't think there is any music.
There is no music to it.
And then they're just trying to. It's
the only
quiet.
time you get music is when she makes the cut with the half joke where she's like, unless they figure out how to open doors. But no, there's no music during that whole scene.
That scene is, for one, scared the shit out of me as a kid, and
And if you
two,
think about it, not much happens. They're just walking around.
and they're animatronic. It's no CGI.
No CGI.
It's
I think
just
there's like one CGI
there's one,
scene
there's
where
one
it
like
jumps,
when it
but
jumps.
that's it.
Right,
though.
right. But like the
It's a lot of legs. It's just a lot of legs.
It's close-ups and then like the eyes and the breathing. Like that scene, I could do a whole breakdown of that. How much I love that scene. But yeah, like as we grow older, our movies evolve, and you tend to gravitate towards like more complex stories. Like like you mentioned, Apocalypse Now. Like I didn't watch that until I was in college.
It's funny. I was in middle school when I saw that.
Yeah, like I was a late bloomer when it came to like
I also had like older parents.
Mm-hmm.
So like give you a general idea. My dad's 80. He's about to push 80. So they're older. So and they were older when they had me, obviously, because they're 80 now. I'm not. I'm not in my 60s. But so there was a certain maturity that they kind of just were like, yeah, just watch what you want. Like, it's fine. We're like, because my dad was not going to sit and watch fucking Disney movies. Like, that was not happening. So he was going to watch the movies he wanted to watch.
Yeah.
And it was all those types of movies. It was a lot. Like, I saw Das Boot when I was in like
the gritty.
I was like in the 6th grade when I saw Das Boot. Like, and it's on my top 10. But yeah, like the whole thing.
Yeah,
dubbed.
and I would watch mostly action movies, and then later, I remember going out and watching the Pokemon movie, as one did.
I went to the movie theater to go see the Pokemon
I
movie.
definitely did it. I know a lot of us did. And eventually, you kind of find your own like movie niche. Separate from like when you went out with your friends or when you went out with your family, you kind of discover your own movies.
It's where I started to realize that like I like these big like tentpole like umbrella like big movies, but I also like a lot of the weirder stuff.
Yeah, same. And I really got into foreign movies. That's when that opened up a whole nother broad of movie collections. I went and saw like the 70s of Mean Streets, Taxi Driver, Coppola, Godfather. I saw that era. And, I always tell everyone I was lucky to be born in the 90s when they had so many good like thrillers, like Seven with Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman. And, like all these, your movies grow. And
well, here's a cool little thing. I was like, I had seen all these movies you just like announced listed. I had seen them when I was a little kid, and I remember growing up like remembering the scenes. Now I have this like weird little thing. If I see a movie once, I can quote it. Even once, I can quote almost the entire movie.
I'm with that with some movies, not all movies.
Almost all movies, not TV shows, but most movies. If I watch it once,
you can remember a quote from there. Yeah,
my memory is pretty much gone at this point. I don't really have much of a short-term memory anymore. But for reasons we don't have to go into. But I have, so there's that. But
you ain't got no legs.
I definitely ain't got no fucking legs. And they have.
I'm so sorry when I told that. Do you remember the time when you had just told me your thing and we went to eat Rodizio and then out of the blue?
Oh, yeah, you fucker. That was awesome.
I felt so bad because I told the joke, I was laughing and I was like, oh, wait a minute. I shouldn't have said that.
Oh, it's fine. It was fine. I didn't care. I thought it was funny as hell. My view is you either laugh or you cry, so I was just laughing my ass off.
I was both. I was doing both. I was like, why did I just say that?
And here I am laughing my ass off. I think it was funny as fuck. So what I was getting was, so I have like this nice little like party trick that I
So do you remember also quotes from bad movies you watched? Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm like that too.
Yeah. And, but then I remember in like high school, and I will remember this specifically, it was the summer from... it was the summer from graduating high school and this right before going to college, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I was in walking distance of a Blockbuster, and they were at this point selling their used movies, but they had so much, so it would be buy like 3 DVDs for like $20, anything they had on the shelf. Right, this is like pretty much Blockbuster's dying at this point. So I would go almost like every day and just buy stacks of movies. I had come into money, so I had like a lot of cash to burn. So I was like, all right, so I built a DVD collection, like a beast of a collection. And I was like, all right, I remember watching movies. I was like, all right, well, let me start watching these movies everyone needs to see. And I remember watching them like, oh wait, I saw this when I was like 5. Oh, I remember watching Animal House, thinking I'm watching Animal House for the first time. It's in the middle of the night.
You watch Animal House when you're 5?
Yeah. I remember like, wait a minute, I know this movie. I'm like 17, 18 years old, and I'm like, this seems very familiar. I think I know the ending to this movie. And I'm like, oh yeah, there's the draw the car. I remember as a kid loving the car. And then it's like the car during the parade at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And I remember just like going through a ton of movies in like one summer. I remember it was right before college, and it was like August, and all my friends are starting to go away. Everyone's starting to get prepared for like the next like step of their lives. And I remember just having a stack of movies and a lot of time to kill because I was staying home. And I just played catch up, but I remember just watching like quote unquote the classics or the must sees for any cinephile out there. And I'm like, oh, I saw these when I was a fucking baby, and I'm like, whoa. So it's funny, like.
But obviously, like.
But now I understand
you
them.
understand.
Now. I didn't
yeah.
understand them as a kid.
You probably like remember like details or like
yeah,
physical stuff.
like
but,
with Animal House, I remember as a kid
themes.
remembering the
Yeah.
car at the end of the parade, but then watching, I'm like, oh, this is like funny. Like, all right, I get it now. Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
get
It
what
made
they're
more
trying to do
sense
here.
as you watched older.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was a late bloomer to those type of movies.
I remember started gravitating towards more like the like before A24 was doing stuff, just a lot of like Seven I really liked, David Fincher movies. I remember starting to start following directors, like understanding.
Yeah, because you
Directors.
gravitate towards their style.
Yeah, because
they really
you watch
know-
movies to watch movies, and then there's I think a jump. Like now it's like they really heavily push the director now when they're trying to promote a movie, but in the
Yeah.
90s they really weren't doing that. I mean, unless you were Spielberg, or like a David Lynch kind of thing. Like no one was like following the directors. Now they do, but I remember that's like when you get into college, that's when you start, the Donnie Darko stuff. You do the Fight Club stuff, the stuff everybody watches when they're in high school and college,
Yeah.
But I remember finding Kubrick in college, and I not realizing had seen Kubrick movies when I was a kid.
You saw Clockwork Orange as a 5-year-old?
I no, that I saw when I was like
that
older.
has some certain scenes that are.
Oh, really fucked up shit. I remember, but I remember watching like The Shining as a kid. But I do remember watching. I think it's like, all right, let me watch Full Metal Jacket. Everyone watches that movie. I remember years before this. I think it's like 2001. My buddy's over. It's the summer. So we go to the movie. We go to the library, and I take out 2001: A Space Odyssey because my brother has been talking this movie up forever, and I see the Simpsons parody with like the monkeys, like they hit the thing. I'm like, oh, this movie's gotta be kind of cool.
90s Simpsons. This is one of the
Peak of television.
Yeah,
Peak of television.
I Will Die on the Hill is one of the greatest TV writing and
First 7 seasons.
yeah.
Yeah. But I remember watching, and then we would go, and I'm like, all right, man, we're it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, it's the summer, we're just, we're up forever. And we watched 2001, and I remember it ended, and that's a heavy movie. I remember calling my brother, who's not a deep thinker. I'm like, sorry, buddy, but it's true. He picks up, and I'm like, so we watched 2001. What the hell happened? And he's like, he couldn't really answer it. I'm like, all right. Then I watched it again as like an adult, and I was like, this is an amazing fucking movie.
Yeah.
And I remember a story my dad telling me. I remember rewatching it, and I go and I'm like, my dad. I was like, hey, Dad, you ever see 2001: A Space Odyssey? And he was like, I saw it in the theater. I was like, whoa. He's like, and I remember
That must have been an experience.
He says at the end of the movie, he remembers people booing it, 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Some things never change. When people don't understand the movie or whatever, they boo it. Or, how many movies at cons or all these movie festivals get booed because people don't understand it.
But I remember him telling me, he's like, yeah, people were booing it. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. But he's like, I remember. Now he romanticizes the story a little bit. He's like, but I remember sitting there after the end, thinking about it for a few minutes and being like, amazing movie. It was mind-boggling. It was amazing. And I'm like, okay, Dad. Yeah. But it's just funny to hear, from that. He's like, oh, yeah, I saw that in the theater. I'm like, whoa.
I know.
That's why
It's one of those movies that, imagine, a movie similar to that coming out now. You see in, the big IMAX theater with the sound.
Mm-hmm.
That's just an experience that...
And then people booing it.
Yeah.
This is the worst fucking thing I ever saw. I'm like, come on.
Come on. Yeah. And it goes back to the thing where I said, I think, imagine watching Prey in a movie theater. Now, granted, I haven't been to movie theaters in, a year or two, but I still get nostalgic about it, especially when I see a movie where I'm like, if I saw this on a big-ass screen, man.
Yeah. I think, too, but I think we've talked about this before, but I mean, home theaters now are getting
I know,
better.
I get it.
Just as good.
The comfort of blah, blah, blah.
It's not even that. The TVs are better. The sound systems are better.
Yes, true.
It's like even, you can pause it, sure, but it's
you had your shitty SD TV back in the day.
I mean, you had a tube at home. Of course the movies suck, but you're in a room with a 200-inch screen. You're going to be like, this is great. But now, people have some pretty heavy TVs. You can get a 90-inch TV that's OLED, and a nice sound system. And, why wouldn't you want to just stay home?
It's just so funny. I think I remember like watching movies and playing video games on our old TVs that we grew up with, and it's like night and day between what we play on now versus what we did back in the day.
I remember playing for like a whole weekend. I had a buddy of mine sleeping over. He was staying the whole weekend. And I remember I had a 13-inch, like those little kitchen TVs.
Yep.
I had a 13-inch one, and that was the only TV I had in my living room. And me and him split screened Perfect Dark for hours.
Dude, Dark.
Okay, split screen on a 13-inch. My phone's bigger than that. Like we laugh about it to this day. He's like, "How did we do that?" I'm like,
That's insane.
"Yeah."
Probably hurt your eyes. They're trying to do that.
I think we just. I think it's one of those like that's all we
squint to see
had, so
that.
that's what you know.
Yeah.
You know, it's.
Underrated game too, Perfect Dark. One episode we should dedicate definitely to video games. I think
I'm
we
sure
could,
that'll come up at least once or twice.
because I have a lot to say about the current state as well as what we grew up with. Well, that was a pretty underrated game, Perfect Dark, because I think it was promoted as like GoldenEye, but like
It
aliens.
was very much trying. Like people thought they were getting another GoldenEye.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
But then as you go,
It was also harder. I vaguely remember not being able to play it but it had a great multiplayer.
Yeah.
And like it was a good split screen game. Like you know, yeah, I do remember that.
But yeah, we like you said, we have better TVs now, better sound systems. So you have the experience of watching a movie at right in front of you.
I mean, too, with streaming services, it's just so much easier. Like Prey was easy. Like for me, as like a new parent, like came out on Friday night, and I was like, cool. I put the kid to bed, and just, I was like, all right, cool. I have 2 hours to myself. The kid's to bed. The wife.
The movie wasn't even 2 hours.
It wasn't, and I was like, all right, cool.
Which, by the way,
throw this on streaming.
I totally down for that because you don't have to make a movie 2.5 hours to 3 hours, right?
See me, and I'm totally. I would love it. Give me a good 3 hour movie.
Yes and no. Like there are certain
Are you someone who looks at the times before they watch the movie? Are you one of those monsters?
monsters. Well, I didn't used to be. I didn't give it two shits back in the day. But now, because I have an issue with movies, because now granted, I understand the movie making process. Like studios make cuts, what the movie was initially X, Y, and Z long. Now they cut it down, or, they never make it longer unless
Right.
you're releasing the director's cut, or something like that. But I think movies now, you can totally tell they drag on more than they should. I don't know whether that's to justify how much money you put into it or because they felt like they need to add more scenes and reshoots or whatever, but they just feel longer than they used to be back in the day. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I can tell you like action movies should be less than 2 hours.
Okay.
Like if you're doing a fantasy epic like Lord of the Rings style, sure, because especially if you're doing a trilogy, I guess you have more leeway to go
I think
longer.
Lord of the Rings is too long. And
You think it should be shorter?
And you're talking to someone who's watched those, read the book. Like, when that came out, I was in it, man. That was my life. I think the extended cuts weren't needed, and I like them, but I own them. Like, it's like, but I don't think.
Well, especially when you're adapting such a large book series,
and that's
you're
why
not going to get to everything.
And I mean, it gets to pretty much almost everything. But this is also why I think people. It's funny that you say that about making movies shorter or under. An action movie can be under 2 hours and all this other stuff. But TV we're in the golden age of TV. I think we're kind of dwindling down now. But I mean, people will watch 7 seasons of one show, but they'll complain about a 3 hour movie.
Yeah, but the difference is, I think, depending on what show whether it's half hour, an hour, you dictate how much of the story you want to see at any given setting.
Okay.
Versus a movie, you have to commit to those. You have to see the full movie.
Right.
Now, granted, you could fall asleep if the movie sucks, or like you're like flipping through channels.
You ever turn off a movie you don't like, or do you finish it?
I finish it.
Really?
I finish it. I am. Is it masochist or sadist, where you like to harm yourself?
I think it's a
Masochist.
I think it's a sadist.
I'm a sadist.
We're a bunch of fucking idiots. Hang on.
Wait, let's make sure.
I'm afraid to Google that. A person who derives from pleasure, and especially, no, you're not a sadist. You are a masochist.
I am a masochist.
A sadist is something else.
Where if I see a really bad, I will watch it through.
Yeah, it's definitely not something we're going to... We're definitely not saying that word on...
So what's interesting is I love movies. I love all kinds of movies. So I will give a movie a chance if there's something interesting. Like, I kind of want to see where this goes.
See, I'll drop a movie.
10 minutes in?
I'll drop a movie if I hate the movie 10 minutes before it ends. If I've
You won't even see the ending.
I've done that a few times. I have
that.
given up on movies where I'm like, why the fuck am I watching this? I'm done. Like, what was it? It was that most recent. Bear with me one sec. There was. Is it the Tomorrow? Yeah, the Tomorrow War.
Oh god, that looked terrible. I didn't even want to touch it.
Is that the Tomorrow? Yeah, the
The
Tomorrow
one with
War.
Chris Pratt.
Yeah. So I'm watching. So I'm like, okay, I'll give this movie a shot. Time travel action movie. All right, let's see where this goes.
You just love time travel, don't you? Dan?
I kind of don't, but it's a hard subject to write about. So I'm always curious for science fiction to do. It's like one of the more tougher science fiction stories to write.
Yeah, because there's a cause and effects
And
element
I'm
to
curious
it.
where they go with it.
Yeah.
And I remember watching Tomorrow War, and I'm just watching this whole thing, and I'm like, first off, it could not pick what type of movie it wanted to be. It
Well,
had
that's
so
when
many
you know
stories.
It's
And I remember the movie, I think I had maybe 20 minutes left, and for some reason I had to stop it. For some reason, like
and you
something
just didn't go
happened,
back to it.
and I made a point. I'm like, oh, I should go back. I'm like, no, I don't want to go back. However, I went to a movie recap on YouTube
Everything comes full circle.
and
Dan.
watched the recap of the movie just to see how it ended, and being like, yeah, I'm glad I didn't waste an additional 20 minutes.
Yeah.
No, I've dropped movies that I'm just like, I just don't have time. Like, you gotta.
If
And I'm not one of these like, you have to hook me in the first 5 minutes.
No, neither am
If I give you an hour,
But
man,
yeah, I will commit to a movie watching it for the most part. Now, here's a question for you. Say maybe you're flipping through something and you catch a movie midway and it's interesting. Will you like finish it to the end and then go back and watch the beginning, or will you stop? Like, this movie's good, I want to see it from the beginning. And then go
I
back.
will probably in that scenario stop.
Stop and go from
Yeah.
the beginning. Okay. Yeah. I'm weird because especially late at night, where you're just like, I just need something to watch for another half hour or something. And then you'll catch maybe midway or towards the end of something. And you're like, oh, this looks pretty interesting. Maybe I'll catch it up again. I will do that for sure.
Have you recently had a movie where you had like where you were pleasantly surprised by like an accident movie, like something you just found and you're like, oh my god, this movie's amazing?
Yes.
When was the last time that happened to you?
Oh, I'm going to
'Cause
try.
I can't. I'm trying to think of when that happened to me, and I'm sure I know it's happened. I'm just trying to remember when.
Yeah. Oh my god, it was recent too. That's why I'm trying to think of the. What was it? Now, is this a movie I totally didn't have any knowledge about,
Or something you like. I mean, that's
or that
in
I
this
knew
era,
about and
it's-
I
listen,
forgot
it's-
about it and then I picked it up again?
Yeah, I mean, it would be more like, because in this era, it's impossible to know nothing about a particular movie.
Right.
But I think it would be more in the lines of just like a movie you watch and you're like, whoa, this was actually better than it should have been. Or
Yeah, there was a Netflix movie I saw that had Mary Elizabeth Winston.
Mm-hmm.
It was an action movie. I forget the name of it.
She plays.
It's kind of like Crank.
Yes.
You remember that
it's-
Jason Statham movie?
Yes, I know
It's
what
kinda
you're
the
talking
same
about.
concept.
Oh my god, that just came out too.
I remember watching that. I was like, this is not half bad.
That was oh my god, Kate.
Kate. There we go. Thank you.
Yes.
That was a.
That's actually
I caught it like
I
at
think
midnight, and I was like,
that I think is based on it could be wrong because there is
Magna.
no, well there's an animated film. It's an anime called Kate. It's a rough movie. Like it kind of goes into some topics that we're not going to discuss
sure.
here.
I mainly
but
watched it because I'm a big Mary Elizabeth Winston fan.
She's great. She's a great actor. She's a great actor.
But I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. Sure. What else did I see?
that kind of was just like, oh,
That was not bad. Fuck.
that would be a good example. It's just a kind of a movie that you just had no faith in, and you're like, whoa, like
Yeah.
that was too good.
Yeah.
I'll give you mine. Like I remember, and this was like, when the pandemic first hit, it's like, all right, let's play some catch up on some old movies.
Mm-hmm.
And King Kong Skull Island.
Yeah.
That
yeah,
movie,
I think we talked about that.
that
yeah.
movie has no right to be as good as it is, but it is.
Yeah.
And I was like, remember watching halfway through it and being like, it was good. Like, you know, when you're ready to watch like a crappy movie, you're just like, I'm just watching this for the whatever. And I'm like, well, this is actually legit good.
Another franchise like the King Kong and Godzilla franchises.
All right, man,
People will
Godzilla's
still,
all man. I love those guys. I'll watch every Godzilla
people will
movie.
still watch those monster.
I want to see a big monster fight another monster in a big city. That's what I
Yeah.
want. Like, it's one of those movies I am shutting my brain off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, it goes back to my love of dinosaurs or like big creatures, like
I mean,
doing
yeah,
crazy
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
You know, granted, the CGI has developed more, and you can do cool stuff with it. Like I was the biggest Pacific Rim defender when it first came out with Guillermo del Toro. Like a lot of people were kind of like 50-50 on it. I was like, hell yeah, let me see
Like,
robots beating
Not to be
up
that guy, but like,
kaiju
I'm gonna be that
monsters.
guy. A lot of anime fans were like, this shit's been done. We have like 30 movies like this. Whereas like American fans are like, this is the most greatest thing. We're
Well,
like, yeah,
true,
we've
true,
seen this
but it's
before.
a live action thing.
No, it's
obviously,
it's
and
a decent, it's a
and it
high
turns off your
production
brain,
value
yeah.
kaiju movie.
And it's Guillermo del Toro, so everyone shut the fuck up.
I'll give you that.
He's part of the Three Amigos, Mexican filmmakers that I'll watch their movies.
I
till
think I
the
should
day.
know.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of another movie I saw that was like pleasantly surprised. Mostly, I go hunting for TV shows now, obviously, because that's just how we are. But
See, I'm more of a fan of a miniseries that ends. Like that's why I like that. Like HBO's doing that now. Like they're doing a lot of just because, like, listen, Game of Thrones is over, so their bread and butter's gone. But they're like,
it's coming back soon.
it's coming
like 2
back.
weeks.
Yeah. But it's very much like the fact that they do limited series, I think is great because there's something with me, I guess maybe like it doesn't like it, something with my anxiety where knowing that it's not
A finality.
I think it can't be a time sink for me. So I
Okay.
can't dedicate. Like, I don't like a show where it's like, all right, so you have to watch the first 3 seasons and then it gets good. Like, I hate that shit. I'm not
Right.
dedicating 5 seasons to a show. I don't have time, and I really start to lose interest. Like, it takes, and this also takes a lot for me to like, actually, genuinely like a TV show.
Yeah.
But something about like a limited series where I like because the writer actually doesn't have to stretch. There's no wasted time in a limited series. Like, everyone loves Breaking Bad and like Mad Men, like those like heavy shows, and the Game of Thrones to a point. There's tons of
Season 5.
filler in those shows
Yeah.
because they'll have a couple seasons and they're like, all right, we need to come up. All right, I got to do 13. I got to do 12 episodes this season. I really don't have enough story beats for like 6. I got to
know what
stretch
you're
this.
saying because I think that's what happened with Game of Thrones, where the writers and executive producers just wanted the show to end because they ran out of their source material with the books, and that's why, in my opinion, people have other opinions, the last couple seasons weren't as strong as the previous 5 or so, is because essentially they could have kept going. Game of Thrones could have done 10 seasons, 11 seasons.
Yeah, and they could have gone.
And they could have explored more.
If you watch, they did the HBO released like a documentary on the filming of the last season, and it's great because it shows you like what, and it's not just the actors, but it's showing like the production team and like how fucking tough those shoots were.
Yeah.
Like at the end of it, yeah, you see them all sad that it's over, but you kind of like see it where you're like,
It's exhausting.
like that's the
sure.
thing. Like, so you get these like fan bases where it's like, yeah, you should redo the most expensive TV show in history.
Fucking hate.
And I'm
when-
like, okay, yeah, and
I fucking hate when fan petitions like,
That's-
let's redo this
like
season.
that's
No.
gonna go anywhere.
It-
but
no.
my thing is like,
Well, with the Snyder cut.
well, the Snyder Cut, I think that was straight up publicity, but which is fine, whatever. Get your bread, get it out there, do your thing. My thing, so with like the Game of Thrones stuff, I was laughing because it's like you're watching, there's just the sheer exhaustion of these teams. And like, even the actors are shot, but it's
Yeah.
like they had one woman, her sole job was to make sure Khaleesi's hair was perfect every scene because of how intricate those hairs was. That was someone's job. So she's up in East bumfuck Greenland, like on these shoots, making sure her hair's perfect. Like, this is how like detailed oriented the show was. Like, the crew is done, man.
Yeah.
Like at this point, like who's like, yeah, HBO said, oh, we would have kept making it. Well, no shit. Like it's like
yeah.
the amount of work that went into that show.
Yeah, I do feel a little bit of sympathy, not a lot, a little bit of sympathy with Benioff and Weiss, the creators of Game of
Benioff
Thrones.
has written one of my favorite books of all time, and he doesn't get enough credit for his actual novel, his novel writing. He's actually a brilliant writer. He wrote a book called City of Thieves.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fictional story that takes place in Russia during World War II in the city of Leningrad. Quick 5-second thing. The siege of Leningrad The city was sieged for 2 years during World War II.
Mm-hmm.
The people were eating each other in the fucking city. Leningrad's a massive city, and it's a fictional story about this one guy and a soldier, and they have like a little simple quest. They have to get eggs for the mayor of Leningrad's like daughter's wedding. It's like an impossible task, and it's their like story of doing it. It's an amazing book.
Don't worry, it'll be a movie. Or
I'm actually surprised it's not, but but David Benioff wrote that,
Yeah.
and it's amazing.
Yeah, I don't
He
question.
also wrote
I
The
don't
25th Hour. Like
I
these
don't
are guys
question
just-
his ability
yeah.
as a writer and creator, because you look at the first 5 seasons of Game of Thrones. That's really solid
Yeah.
writing and really story structure. The problem was once they ran out of source material. And once, because I know they had discussions with George R.R. Martin about like how he was planning to end it, but at the same time, they had to also think, how can we show the progression of the story in a TV medium with a budget, and how many seasons left. And I do kind of feel for them, because they're like, okay, well, fuck, we got to come up with a continuing story from what already has been established.
Don't forget, you
and
also have actors who have contracts.
Exactly.
And you have to give these people screen time. So it's like, why do you think it's convenient that a lot of the big actors of that show, like at the end, like, oh, big prominent actors aren't being killed every season anymore. Like that kind of went away, because they're like, and I
clear
seriously doubt
plot
that was
armor,
beneficial.
contract armor.
That was contract armor. Why do you think? Like, it's like they even said too publicly that spoilers, that when they kill Ned Stark in the first season, they go, we'll never do that again. Like, are you kidding me? We spent an entire season writing and building up this character just to kill him off, and then fine. But the next season we have to find their new character to build up and do it all again. They're like, we're never doing that again, and I don't blame them. They're like, we learned a lot about that. Listen, you can say what you was about the last season. I was in the camp of this show needs to end. Because TV show, because that
I didn't mind it that it ended in 8 seasons. I minded certain decisions of the story and characters.
Absolutely.
But like you said, it was such a big, massive production and a game change. I would say another one of those game changer shows.
See, here's the thing: without Game of Thrones, you don't get the Star Wars shows. You don't, because the Star Wars shows cost more than the Game of Thrones
exactly.
shows.
But because of the success of the Game of Thrones,
like, we can make some.
We will give you money to make the Mandalorian, because the Mandalorian was made in a time where Star Wars was kind of iffy.
Yeah,
they just finished.
This was a Hail Mary. It was a Hail Mary.
They just finished sequel movies that there were a lot of criticism within the Star Wars fan base and studio base, and they were like, all right, we're going to give money to Jon Favreau, of all people, who, yes, he did jumpstart the Marvel thing with Iron Man, but at the same time, he's kind of, we're not sure. And lo and behold, they're back.
That absolutely worked.
They've always been there, but
I mean, that was definitely like a Hail Mary. They're like, all right, like the movies are fucking plummeting. We got to fix this. So it's I totally get why, like with Game of Thrones, like there's a ton of story points they don't finish, and even without the ending, like that whole, which I think the ending does make some sense. Like, I mean, listen, everyone kind of gets a little annoyed that Khaleesi goes mad and all that shit. Well, here's the thing: she's been crucifying people for 3 fucking seasons, but no one cares. But now all of a sudden she's evil. Like, no, she's been insane from day one. Like, there's actually some very good writing and some really good foreshadowing in that show. It's one of these shows that I think it's a time and a place thing, because no one's rewatching that show anymore. And I don't think it has anything to do with the ending. I think it's because of how the show is written. Like, no one's rewatching Lost. It's one of these shows where it's like, if you're not in the moment, it kind of goes away.
Yeah.
Because I was always saying
that's a good point.
A part of me wanted it to end because I was getting really it was kind of exhausting listening to everyone get into it. Like, people like, oh man, Game of Thrones is the greatest thing out there. And it's like,
well, it was a community show.
It was a community show.
Which I kind of like.
I'm cool. It helps the momentum, but a part of me was like, can this show end already? Because like, I'm starting to not care. Like,
but I could tell that certain scenes and certain stories were rushed and fast forwarded because of that. And I think that makes the
it hurt the show. I'm not saying it didn't.
Yeah.
It absolutely did. But a part of me was like, this show needs to end now. And I'm like one of these people that if a show has more than 3 seasons, and I know I'm wrong on that one, but I'm like,
I actually agree with you. I think it's 5 for me. 5 is the benchmark for me, because I think you have to have.
I think you should end at 5. Like, you should be ending at 5.
Exactly, like 5 seasons. You have like the first season establishing the world, establishing the characters. The second season you have like the main antagonist or the main plot moving. The third you have like the big moment, and then the last 2 are kind of like reaching the end, or you're now the experienced character Now you have to go through
Right.
another. So it's the hero's journey. I know it's lame. Everyone's
But it
every
works.
every freaking filmmaker
It works, though.
and writer has heard it, but it works because it helps you structure. And that's one of my biggest problems as a writer is structure, because you have all these crazy ideas and you want to write them down. Like I'm sure when you and other people are building like a D&D campaign, yes, you have all these ideas, but you want to have structure too. You don't just
Oh
wanna,
yeah,
like,
you can't just throw everything.
throw everything all at once, And same thing when you're writing a script or something. Like I do an outline before I even write the script. I do an outline of like
Yeah,
act
where's the
one,
story
act two.
going? Like,
where's it
it's-
going? Where are the characters?
Can't be
where,
too heavy,
Where are the
can't be too
triggers,
crowded.
transitions in the next scenes, all that stuff. Because if you just try and write on a whim, it's gonna be all over the place.
Yes.
I remember I wrote a script in college in my screenwriting class, and it's like it's a good story, but it's a little all over the place. And I was like, yeah, I know. And so structure to me is like one of the big things you want to get when you're building not just a movie but a TV show, because you want to have that character arc. That's why I tell everyone Breaking Bad had the perfect story and character arc. You started out as one person, ended as
And that's
another.
where I think where it comes back to my view on miniseries is that allows
Yeah.
like I think it's the perfect medium, because you don't have to worry about like movies. I believe sometimes it's a time crunch. Like I have to get you invested in the first 10 minutes, and then I have to do 3 acts in 90 minutes. We
Right.
got to bang this out. So
Right.
and it's hard.
No, it's
Because you have
incredibly
to
hard.
I need you guys to be invested into the characters, but I only have really 15 minutes to do it. Whereas a limited series, you get the best of both worlds. You get the time to build a story, but you don't have the time crunch of a movie, but you also don't have to worry about stretching because, or, all right, what I really want to do is at the big ending point of the story, my main character is going to do the grand sacrifice, right?
Yeah.
But the problem is, like, all right, with a television show, that could be my ending. I don't know when that ending's even going to happen, if it's going to happen or when it will happen.
Right.
So I could get renewed for a second season. Cool. Am I getting renewed for a third? Am I getting a fourth? Oh shit, I think I'm getting renewed for a fourth. So I'm going to write out and I'm filming and I'm ready to go. My big ending will come in season 5 maybe. And like, oh, actually we're deading you now. And I never get to that ending.
It's so funny. I remember listening to something about Stranger Things, and if you haven't seen the recent,
I haven't yet.
You haven't yet? Well, then I'll keep it brief. But essentially, they said that the Duffer Brothers, is that
Duffer Brothers.
Duffer Brothers, the Duffer Brothers had an idea in mind in season 1, but they weren't sure they're gonna have a season 2.
Right.
So they introduced the idea in season 1, and if
Give you a little taste.
yeah, give you a little taste. And if this show gets up and running, we'll progress that idea
Yeah.
and make it like grow.
And it's like it sucks that they had to do that. But with like a mini series, they don't have to worry about that.
Yes.
So that's why I think if you're gonna take a book and make it into something, a miniseries is the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Because you have enough space to build characterization for everything you need, and you can get your.
You don't
ending
have to
that
worry about
want.
filler. You don't have to worry about like extending a plot line or character.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, it's the reason why every big show, the main actors always die at the end.
Yeah.
Because you can't kill them off in the middle.
Nope.
Because shit, I got another. I got half a season to do.
Unless you create a legacy thing, which
Is a lot of people don't like doing because they get really nervous.
yeah. Yeah. Speaking of things that should end, I think our
Yeah, I think we're hitting our time.
even though this is a very interesting conversation, we can pick it up
Maybe
in
pick it up.
another.
I do have another homework assignment for you that you should
Okay.
try.
Well, when are you gonna do the one I send you, the bear, huh? Oh, because you have to watch it.
That's a group watch, but we do plan on getting to it. There's one show. Now, bear with me on this one.
If you say Cobra Kai, we're ending
no.
the podcast altogether.
Give me a little room, bro.
Listen, I've had too many people now
No.
say, I know.
I've
You,
watched.
we ride or
I have
die.
a-
We
yeah,
ride or
when-
die on that show. Yes,
I
Dan?
have seen enough of those episodes.
Dan, we ride or die and not seeing Cobra Kai.
I don't have to worry about you not watching this. You're not going to watch it because you shouldn't.
Why are people still... Anyway.
Anyway, so bear with me on this show.
Okay.
It's an anime,
It's an anime, okay.
but it has an ending and it only has 12 episodes.
What medium? What streaming service?
I believe it is on Crunchyroll, but it is also on my Plex server
So I'll watch it.
because I actually own it. So
Okay, what's the name?
It's called Odd Taxi.
Odd Taxi.
Odd Taxi.
Okay.
So the premise is it's a
Keep it
world.
very short, too.
Yep,
'cause-
I got you. It's
Pitch it to me, Dan.
It's a modern. It's an animophobic world. So it's all like animals that walk like humans. So
Okay.
So it deals with a cabbie in Japan who's a walrus. There's no humans. It's all but it's like mixed animal. So think like Zootopia, but anime style.
Okay.
And it deals with a taxi cab driver It deals with a crime, like a crime boss. It deals with a kind of an underling of a crime. It deals with someone who wins the lottery. It deals with a bunch of girls that are in like a girl group. But it is the closest to a Quentin Tarantino-esque story that anime's ever gotten to.
Okay.
It's winning it's won like best anime of the year. It's won some serious accolades. The dialogue is very similar to a Pulp Fiction. It's kind of like a Pulp Fiction story.
Okay.
Where it's multiple characters in this world, in this city, taking place over like a week. And every episode kind of it deals with this cabbie who's like a walrus, and he's just kind of driving around and he's doing his job. But like it's about all the people in his life and how in their stories and how everything is like intertwined.
Okay.
And there's a pretty cool ending. Don't Google anything about the show, but that is the best I can say. The soundtrack's pretty chill. Give it 2 episodes. They're 22 minutes long.
Dubbed or subtitles? I have to watch it.
You could do either. I watched it dubbed.
Okay.
The voice acting's really good.
All right, good. Yeah, animes, I'm not too worried about dubs versions.
I mean, there are professional
live
voice
action
actors
stuff
for
where I'm like,
live action is a little rough, but the animated dub, the translation's really good. I would like for you to see that show before our next recording. That is your homework. I know that's not really the best pitch, but it's a really good show. I just finished it, and yeah, it goes some places. Like it deals with like this guy who's a doctor, but he's a gorilla. But it's it's that.
All right,
story.
don't tell me more. I'll check it out.
Yeah, it's just
I have a 3-hour flight in a couple of days. So.
Yeah, if you want, definitely. I think it's on.
Although I'll be editing our second episode.
I believe real quick, Odd Taxi is streaming on Crunchyroll. But if it's not,
on your Plex
it's
server,
also on my
I'll watch
Plex.
it via that.
Is it on?
It's good to have friends, folks, with Plex services.
Yes, I actually legitimately own this, so thank you. But yeah, it's on my Plex server, and it's also on Crunchyroll. You can get like a trial for like a week.
Odd Taxi, okay.
Yeah, Odd Taxi. It's 13 episodes. They're about 22 minutes long.
Oh, they're short. That's great.
No, yeah, it's like animes are not crazy long, so
What's less?
the animation's really good. The storytelling's really like it's refreshing. There's no like cringe like fan service creepy shit in it. Like it's a really well written show, and I think you would appreciate the writing very
Cool.
much.
I will check it out, and we'll report back on our next episode.
Yeah, but once again, guys, thanks for listening, and we'll
Gracias.
see you on the next one.